Howdy, and welcome to another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I'm your host, Daniel Dolphin.
Yes, today is Miss Louise Lilley. Sarah is an EFT practitioner and speaker. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique or Tapping. Known for her holistic and heart-centered approach, Sarah equips riders with tools that cultivate ease, trust, and clarity by releasing the root causes of anxious thinking and limiting beliefs. So I think she works a lot with people on their people problems in relation to horses, helping them with trauma and past. And not that I've ever met a rider that had past trauma that affected their ride anything. I haven't have anything to do there, but get into it. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. My pleasure. We do start everybody at the round questions and then for point prize. Want to be your aim. All right.
I'm ready.
Okay. If we're a die, percent here, they wouldn't use words.
I think there's a 0% chance because I think assuming I'm going into like full Jedi training and then I'm going to really respect the Force and I'm going to use it for good. And I don't really think, if I was, sitting in here and I forgotten my coffee cup in the kitchen, I don't really think the Force would mind if I just used my powers to like bring me the coffee cup and save myself a few steps. So I think my definition of using the Force for ill would just be kind of, using it, to help the Sith or, the dark side.
Yeah, overthrow a free trade agreement or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I'm already hoping my son, who's a huge Star Wars person, that answer is a good answer because he would be very concerned about that answer to that question.
Morning or evening?
Morning, definitely. I spent a long time when I was younger, definitely like a night owl. But now morning, 100%. I love morning time. Yeah.
Okay. How long do you dunk a cookie in milk?
Oh, I have heard your answer to this question. And I feel like there's zero time. At no time is acceptable.
Okay. So you like a dry cookie and then you'll add your liquid later, or?
Yeah, I just didn't grow up. I grew up in England. I just didn't grow up with the whole milk and cookie situation. So the idea that you'd even have milk with your cookies is not to yuck your yum is quite abhorrent to me. I'm not going to lie. So I like a hot tea. I give me a hot tea with my cookie, like a mint tea in the evening if I don't want to have more caffeine, or chamomile tea with my cookie. But I don't want to dunk it. But I do love a hot tea with like a chocolate chip cookie.
So I like tea quite a bit actually, and I'll have to say, to me the notion of adding milk to tea weirded me out for a long time, and then I kind of thought, well, I like coffee, and there's nothing objectionable to adding milk to coffee, and so, but I don't prefer drink coffee black for the most part too. So.
Yeah, no, I like English breakfast tea with like a tiny bit of milk, but all my herbal tea is no milk. Yeah.
On a scale of 30 to 37, how thankful are you that people don't spontaneously express their emotions through song and dance?
From 30 to 37? How
31
grateful am
to
I that they do not?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess I'm pretty 37. I mean, I feel like a good happy song would be nice, but I would not want to be around someone. I'm thinking about New York City, for example. There's a lot of people here. If everyone was spontaneously busting out into their songs, and some of them would be angry songs, that feels like that would be very overwhelming. So I'm very grateful that it's not happening.
What's the best horse movie?
Oh my goodness. This movie has not been made, but there was whispering of this movie being made, I don't know, a decade ago. And I always thought this would be an amazing movie. So I'm just going to say, even though it's never actually been made, Snowman, do you know that story? There's a really great story of this. Basically, one of these horses, I forget exactly the time period when it happened. I want to say it was like I may be way off on this, but it was like maybe 40s or 50s or something like that. One of these stories, this beautiful gray was bought from like a slaughterhouse from like $1 or something. And he went on to have this amazing show jumping career. And it's just this amazing story, and this family that bought him. And I forget the show jumper's name who had him, but he didn't come from money. He came from some humble beginnings, and just like had this amazing success with this like amazing horse. And I just think it would be such a great movie. So I'm going to say that, even though it hasn't been made yet.
Good. Sounds good.
Someone should make that movie. Someone should make that movie.
What skill or technique do you not have with a horse that you admire in someone else and wish you did have?
Oh my God. Too many to count. Like so many. I couldn't even name one. So many. I feel like I'm just in the beginning of that journey with like horsemanship and who I am as a rider. So, okay. I'm not going to say one. Just there's lots of those that I value mastery as like one of my kind of values in life, and I just feel so much that I'm slowly moving towards my horse journey that I'm excited about, that I'm curious about, and I guess one of the things I'm looking to do with my mare, which I've never done, is liberty work. So I think that's a skill set I'm looking to like explore and dive into. So,
okay, that's fair enough. Yes, ma'am. What would you say is the most important quality of a horseman or horsewoman?
Ooh, well, I'll say two things. One, through the lens of the work I do, I would say emotional regulation, right? The horsemen and women that I admire, they are the calm in the storm for the horse, right? They give the horse the space. They calmly just kind of ask again. They pivot when needed. They're gentle there. They have this kind of gentle, quiet leadership. None of their emotions are affecting what's happening. And I think something that actually my trainer said, Devin said the other day too, which I think is huge, is they don't have ego. There's no ego, right? There's no need to prove themselves. There's no problem admitting they're wrong, or they have more to learn, or they don't know the answer to the question, or they're willing to pivot. There's no kind of ego in their horsemanship journey. So those are the two things. I'd say emotional regulation, right? They don't bring their frustrations, their stuff onto the horse. They're not projecting onto the horse. They're just, and lack of ego.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well can you back a trailer?
Well, to be honest, I've never backed a trailer, so I'm going to give myself a low score. Although I do parallel park a lot in New York City, so I feel like, even though I've never done it, I feel like I'd give myself like a solid 6. I mean, the other day I parked in New York, and I literally got out of the car, and I thought, I don't even know how I got into this space. Like I was virtually like bumper to bumper with the cars. And I literally was like, it was actually funny because I was talking on the phone to my sister as I was backing up and getting into this space. And I think if I hadn't been on the phone, I probably would have like focused too much and like not got into the space. But because I was like chatting on to her, just kind of going with my instincts, I got into this space. I was like, I don't even know how I did that. So I feel like I'd be pretty good at it. I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to give myself a 7, even though I've never done it.
Okay. Bay or sorrel?
I own a bay mare, so I'm going to go with bay, although I love them all.
Okay. Do you have a preference other than bay, like you just have always wanted?
Not really. The horse I rode as a kid, who I loved, was a sorrel, a chestnut. Yeah, I love them all. I always felt like grays are really hard to keep clean, I think they're beautiful, and I love the kind of the changing color over time. I think that's such a beautiful kind of journey. But yeah, I always feel like that's like most people, like the least important part. I think they're all beautiful and stunning.
Dogs or cats? And as I say that, this big black and white has just moved up behind you and settled in.
Yes. So I have 2 cats. So I'm going to go with cats, but I love dogs too. My building in New York doesn't allow dogs. I've been here almost 20 years. So I often think that's probably a good thing, because I'd probably have a dog if we were allowed one. But I want a big dog and, living in New York. Oh, my other cat's going to come say hi now after I've mentioned talking about her.
Hmm.
I'd want a big dog in New York, and it's hard in a small apartment. So until I leave the city, cats it is.
I could imagine that would be very difficult in an apartment in New York. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Lots of people do it, but then you really need like walkers and a financial commitment of getting them, getting them out regularly. And yeah, I want a dog that can do a lot more.
Mhm. Okay, now for one of our, especially since you're a somewhat of a natural New Yorker, does pineapple belong on pizza? Okay, go ahead. Spit at the camera. I know you want to.
I mean, if you want, it's not for me, but it's not for me. But if you like it, who am I to judge what you want to put in your pizza? I'm like a classic, really good, like margarita gal on my pizza. But if you like pineapple on your pizza, go for it. Do you put pineapple on your pizza?
I wouldn't do it on purpose, not generally, but I don't mind eating it. My wife does pineapple on pizza, so like if we split a pizza or something, inevitably I get one of her slices that'll have it. So
Yeah.
I'm more meat and jalapenos. I want spice and like bold flavors and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
There's a guy I follow on Instagram now. I think it's the algorithm listening to me as my phone's sitting here, and I have this
100%.
And his whole Instagram channel, he's actually a professional chef. He was on one of those TV shows and didn't win or whatever. But his whole thing is putting ingredients on pizza that sound more disgusting than pineapple. And like he'll have baby food and prosciutto and a habaneros, and it's always awesome. Like he's a legit chef, so he gives you this thing that seems like a curveball, and then it turns out awesome. So I like that.
I like my pizza hack is cold pizza the next day, like traditional, like I guess any type of pizza, but cold pizza out of the fridge the next day, and then you squeeze lemon juice on it, and then eat it cold. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The lemon juice gives it like this really strong like acid, and then it's just delicious.
Yep. So like for me, one of my very favorite meals is leftover fried fish. The next day, the same kind of thing. You fry fish, put it in the fridge, pull it out, lemon juice on it. I mean, exactly like you're saying, but fried fish, and that's like a death row kind of meal for me would be that right there.
I should do that. I make, good idea. Note to self. Noted. The future.
Are you a cook?
I mean, I actually like to cook, and when I do like actually give myself the time to do it, I do, but these days I'm much more of a putting food together type person. It's just busy and like lots of putting salads together, putting foods together, not really cooking. It's more kind of, putting some simple things on a plate.
Fair enough.
And also my son is 15 and he's quite picky with food. And it's so hard to like put all this effort in this beautiful meal. And he's like, I want it. It's like easy just to like make something that all of us can eat and keep it simple. And yeah.
No. I too have a picky son. Do you have a horse industry related pet peeve?
I think really like I still think there's a big old school like you from again from the lens of what I do, of people pushing people to get right back on the horse if they do have a fall. And if they do a fall and they're laughing it off and they feel great, of course, like get back on, no problem, absolutely no problem. But I've had lots of clients who have a fall and are kind of just forced to kind of rush back on the horse right away. And then nervous system is either kind of still honestly in shock and they're kind of like zony and sort of feeling really out of it, or they're still really activated and they're just feeling anxious and maybe shaky. And that is much more likely to kind of lock in that response into your body and come back to trigger you in the future than if you give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the rest of the day sometimes, whatever you need to kind of disperse that energy, right? Just in the way that if a mouse was, running away from a cat, got back into its little mouse hole and it's safe, and it kind of automatically starts tremoring, right? And kind of shaking off all that excess cortisol, adrenaline, kind of releasing that from its nervous system. so it can go on the rest of its mouse day. So, a lot of people really need that time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. Sometimes it's just 5 minutes, or you just walk around the arena with your horse for a lap and then you get back on and it's fine. But you really, you need to make sure you feel good getting back on. And if you don't, take the time you need. And there's a lot of well-meaning people, I really get it's well-meaning, who are like, you've got to get back on, or you've got to get back on now, or you've got to push through. If you don't get on now, you'll mess yourself up. And the opposite is true. Give yourself the time you need so you feel good. It's okay if you feel a little bit, but you give yourself the time you need so you feel ready to get back on.
Okay. Feral or spoiled? I don't know if this is a fair question for you, if you really work with the horses
I would need need a lot of support on both of those. So probably either or. I would probably go. If I had to pick, I'd probably go feral. But yeah, I would need a lot of support. And I have a lot of support, so I would find my people. But I would, I guess I would go feral.
Let me throw a twist in that for you. So, would you say that the people that you're working with who have had some sort of trauma with horses, do you think most of them were traumatized by a horse that was wild and scared, or spoiled and maybe the fear on the other?
Yeah, I think most of them, I would say, generalization, there's already exceptions. Most of them were just horses being horses, and not like a feral thing that just, something spooked them, and they weren't particularly they weren't dangerous feral horses, just something sometimes. Just something happens, right? And it's through just an unfortunate random thing that happens, right? Or just, it's not really bad. Most of the time it's not, occasionally it's like someone who's maybe overhorsed or was riding a horse they probably shouldn't have been riding. But I would say 99% of the time, it's just kind of one of those freak things that happens.
Okay. I don't know if it's gonna be really what least favorite barn turn.
I don't like the part. Well, it's fine, but I don't like the part when you're mucking out the stall and you get to the really urine-soaked part of the shavings, and it's got that really strong smell. And I have a really sensitive nose, so you get that one whiff of that kind of burning the nostrils, ammonia kind of smell. I don't love that. There's one moment was just that one kind of one sort of forkful that you're like, oh, that was strong. I don't like that one forkful.
Another reason to hate cats, right there, right? The same kind of.
That's true. It doesn't bother me with the cat so much. It's not as strong, but there's that one forkful. I guess probably different times of the month too, or the year if they're in heat or something too. But yeah, the cat is not as strong. It's that one forkful sometimes with horses. But again, I love all the chores really. So it's a minor annoyance, not a big thing.
I guess it's like different people have different sensitivities to spice or something like that. I am apparently off the chart sensitive to the smell of cat pee. To me, it is one of the strongest, most vile odors in the world. I would rather a rotting carcass that's been in the sun for a week smells better to me than cat pee does. But anyway,
that's funny.
And of course, I marry a cat lady, so
that's funny. You would not like living in a New York City apartment with a small apartment with 2 cats, but honestly, it doesn't smell. Yeah, they're not bad. Yeah. I have a natural litter that's a non-chemical one, and I think maybe that is weirdly less smelly than the chemical laden ones. I don't know, just a theory.
Do you have a most favorite barn chore?
I do like feeding. I know I've heard you say that too. They're just so excited about it, and it's like, oh yes, here it is. They're just so excited to see you, and I know it's about the food, but you can kind of anthropomorphize and pretend it's about you, and it's just they're so excited to get it, and they're so, I don't know, slurpy or just getting in there, and just it's just sweet. Mm-hmm. All the whinnying that goes along, and they're like, it's coming, and it feels like you're having a conversation. It's fully anthropomorphized, I realize, but it's still just fun and sweet.
Do you have any favorite words of wisdom, like a mantra that just you come back to time and time again with regard to this?
Well, what just popped up in my head when you said that was, it's not in your head, it's in your body. That's something I say a lot. Or I say, confidence isn't mindset, it's safety in the nervous system. That's one of the things I hear myself say all the time. Yeah, I think those are the two I would say. If I had a billboard or something, those would be my billboards.
Okay.
Or one of those buttons, they had the Staples had those buttons and you'd hit it and it would say like easy or whatever it used to say, that whole button thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? And if I had a button, it would be like, and it would be like, it's not in your head, it's in your body.
Crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
I like both, but I would go with, I think crunchy. I like it all texture. Yeah. I use a lot of peanut butter to make like a Thai peanut sauce too. So I like a little crunch in that too.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Would you tell us something unexpected about you?
Oh, I don't know. I guess the thing that came up, I don't know if it's unexpected or not, but before I was in this kind of work, I was an actor in New York. So that's why I'm in New York. So that's like that's a whole nother part of my life, or like the first part of what I did for work, was I was an actor in New York. So that's like a different, just very different than what I do now. So maybe that's unexpected.
So if an actor in New York, does that mean more like stage plays, Broadway, that kind of thing, rather than like
so I did,
movies, TV?
Yeah, so when I first moved to New York, I did a lot of theater. I did a lot of dance performances. I did a lot of production. I would produce a lot of like more avant-garde theater and dance production, some performance artists, and then I did a bunch of like TV shows in New York, like lots of like a lot of Law and Orders, which is kind of New York City actor bread and butter, and a lot of like I did a recurring role on Conan O'Brien when he shot years ago in New York. And so just a lot of like little TV stuff, mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which I do think weirdly, I think about, so I'm jumping in. I've been thinking, well, not a lot recently, but it's occurred to me recently, like so much of my skill set as an actor is really translates into my relationship with my horse, or how I am as a horse person, because it's that same sense of sort of, you have a script, but you also have to kind of improvise between the lines. You have kind of a scene partner and you have a horse, and you don't know how the scene partner is going to be that day, and you have to work with the scene partner you have, not the one you had yesterday or the one you think you should have. And it's that same. As an actor, I used to get stuck in my head, and sometimes as a rider and as a horsewoman, like I can get stuck in my head too, and it's not in your head, it's in your body, and I really have to, it's like come from a place of the body, right? And like for me, feel comes from the body. It's not a head piece, right? It's in the body. So I think there's so much overlap, not only from what I do for work now as an EFT practitioner, my skill sets as an actor really translated into my skills as a practitioner, but also really translate into my skills as a horse person too.
Did you know that scientists recently combined cheetah and crab DNA? Things went sideways really fast.
I did not know that. That seems
So,
like an urban legend, that one.
On a more serious
my brain's got to think. My brain doesn't have to think what that would look like. That would be like a spotted crab, or like that's like my brain can't even handle that juxtaposition.
Yeah, I think the vertebrate, the invertebrate thing would be a little too far of a leap to play with DNA, but who knows? So in reality, they have had almost like Jurassic Park style. I think it's being done in Russia. There's a company that has resurrected woolly mammoths. I think they have like 3 of them now. And that's their deal, is they're bringing back extinct species. So I think they're now planning on dire wolves and like saber-toothed tigers and things like that, trying to,
Wow. Well, after my son's obsession about Star Wars is definitely his number 1, but number 2, close second, is the Jurassic Park whole series of movies in the world. So I'm surprised he has not mentioned this to me. I will have to inform him.
I've been looking into it. It's pretty cool. If I was like dinosaurs, he needs to just something like emus, because it's a little sort or what that. We moved to this barn. It had been kind of abandoned for a while, years, And there were lots of frogs and lizards and all sorts of little things around here. And when we moved our chickens over, they cleaned out within like 3 months. You can't find a frog or a lizard or a mouse or a snake, or like they hunted down and ate every last bit of it. So they are predators of the purest kind. They really are. Okay. Um, Thoughts or feelings? So do you consider yourself more of a intuitive, go with the gut person, or a cerebral, my brain
Yeah,
overrides
I mean, I've got to
everything?
go with the case in point. It's not in my head; it's in my body. I'll definitely go with body and emotions. I mean, I'm a very studious person. Like I said, I value kind of mastery, so I do a lot of research on things, and I love like how things work and making informed decisions and learning from other people. But ultimately, um, yeah, I go with my gut. I generally I sort of have a rule that for big decisions, I have an instinct, but then I have to sit with that instinct for 24 hours and make sure it's kind of the truth and then go with that. So I do kind of let myself sit with it and make sure it's not coming from a place of just kind of exuberance or excitement and not really kind of sitting in it. But I would say, yeah, especially given what I do, I would say, yeah, I'm more of a go with your gut emotions person.
What would you have been? I guess you might have already answered this, but what would you have been professionally if not for a horsewoman?
Um, that's a good question. If I wasn't doing, I mean, I think I would be. I mean, there's so many things. Going back to your other question, like I would love to do. I just don't have the time to do all the things. Like I would love to really dive deep into like doing body work for horses. I would love to. So I think if I wasn't doing this, I would be horse related, but it's just different. So it's not really. It's escaping your question a little bit, but I would just pivot to a different part of the horse world and do that. Like, yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing that popped in my head, I don't know, is like, um, I mean, I can't imagine at this point not being with horses, but for some reason I wasn't, or for some reason that wasn't in my passion list. I think maybe I would do something, it would be nature related. I'd be like I don't know, like a scuba diver or like some sort of nature hiking. It would be nature related, I think.
Okay. So is the door closed on the actor world for you then? Do you still
Yes.
not?
Yes.
Okay. That
Yeah.
seemed
I
pretty,
mean,
pretty
I
definitive.
mean,
All right. All right.
not that, if someone randomly today was like, you want to do this one thing, you don't have to audition and we'll just offer you the role. I'd be like, sure, let's do it. But that's not something I've pursued now for 7 years, I want to say. So, I have no interest in pursuing it. If something randomly popped up, sure. But, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Are you decisive or indecisive? I feel like the answer to
Oh.
this one's a little obvious. So,
I mean, I'm someone who's quick to action. Like I'm someone who's like, I decide on something and I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. And I also think I have tools, like I can use EFT to kind of bring myself clarity if I don't have clarity. So I feel like I would say most people would say I'm pretty decisive. I think I'm good
I
at
think,
pivoting. I'm good at, yeah, figuring out how to get clarity if I don't have it. And once I've got that kind of gut feeling, I intuitively trust that. The few times I've not trusted that, I've regretted it.
okay.
And I think that's true for a lot of people, right? I've had a few clients who, who will say like, I felt like something was wrong, right? But like someone who quote unquote knows more than them told me I was fine or they was fine, it's gonna be fine. But they intuitively had this feeling of like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure about this. And they let themselves kind of not to even be talked out of it, but doubted themselves because someone who quote unquote knew more than them told them it was okay. And then they've gone against that instinct and then they've had something happen. So I think, yeah, you just want to follow that gut instinct.
Do you have a favorite piece of tack or horse related tool?
Um, Right, the water went down the wrong way.
Easy to edit out. No worries about that.
Well, again, per our earlier conversation, I haven't done lots of Liberty work yet, but I have like a lovely, sort of neck rope that I've played a little bit with my mare, and it's sitting next to my saddle right now, and I'm just excited about what that. Yeah, I'm just excited about what that. I'm excited what that future brings. Just riding her just with that and no bridle. So I'm going to say that's my favorite currently. Even though I'm not using it that much right now, I'm just excited by that, the possibility of that.
So do you consider bridle riding to be under that Liberty work?
Yes, I guess I'm kind of collapsing that for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Take now. Hardest about the little list is what to do hand. That's definitely that's the hard part of it. That's the part that's going to strike you.
I missed what you said because it was a weird reception. Can you just repeat that?
The hardest part about riding bridleless is figuring out what to do with your hands. That is what's going to strike you when you're doing it, like the thing I didn't expect or whatever. That's what it's going to be. What do I do with my hands now?
Yeah.
Cold showers or cold food forever? Which would you pick?
Oof. I think I would go with cold showers. I think they're actually, for some people, they're good for the nervous system. I think for some people, if you're really in a place of anxiety, it can be almost too much. It can be too overwhelming. But yeah, I think I would get used to that. I think that would be fine. And I love hot food sometimes. Like I love a hot soup, and I love like a good shepherd's pie. And I love that sort of, I love warming food. I love a curry or like a good stew or a chili. I would be sad. I'd rather, I love my cup of tea. Exactly. I love my coffee. So yeah, I think that's no problem. I get used to it. I wouldn't even notice it was cold anymore after 3 weeks or something, I think.
So as an equestrian, would you say that your hands or your legs are better?
I think my hands are getting better, but I think my legs are better. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I can I can get grabby with my hands sometimes. And I think, but I'm getting much better. I'm doing much better with that, but yeah.
Nervous system override a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true. It's like, I think it's like, it's like in the moments when, I think that's 100%. If there's moments of like, for any reason I feel a little uncertain, it's like, my immediate instinct is like, I want to grab, which I think is a lot of people's instinct. And I think I'm working with a trainer now where her style of riding is very soft and really is like very gentle in the hands, which I love. And it's really highlighting like how I want to kind of I want to lean on that too much sometimes. So yeah.
Left or right lead? Would you say there's one that's easier, more intentional for you?
It's so funny because my mare's just switched. Well, not just switched. She's kind of switched. My left was easier, but now I would say my right's easier on her, funnily enough.
Okay.
And I can be to the right. I broke my shoulder, and so I have a lot of hardware on my shoulder, and I can be more, my arm is just stiffer on the right side. So sort of fun, like going to the right, I can be almost like heavy sometimes on that inside. But yeah, now, so wait, which is it now? So now I'm confusing myself. So yeah, now right is easier, but yeah, right is easier. Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to know, right? It's like you're influencing the horse, but then the horse is it's making up for you, and then they get and then it's it's hard to know chicken or the egg there, but yeah.
I was not remembering probably a good thing. I very intend to have this remembering thing about so that I don't bring yesterday's ride into the saddle with me today. And
Yeah.
so if you get up there dreading the left lead, I guarantee you're going to have problems with the left lead. So if
100%.
you
100%.
so probably not being able to readily answer that question is greatly to your benefit, I would say.
Excellent. Excellent.
What is the best smell in the barn?
I think like my horse's muzzle, like that, like if you just like, I'm like, yeah, just like the softness of like when you sort of like kiss the muzzle there and the nose, it's so soft and just like that horsey smell. I think that smell.
Like the baby, like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, like the horse's breath there, and you like kiss that part, and yeah, that's delicious.
sweet, salty, or spicy.
Sweet, salty, or spicy. I mean, I don't want to be the sweet person, but I definitely like sugar. I wish I didn't like sugar as much as I do. And again, I'm better, but I still feel like I eat more sugar than I probably should.
Probably true for all of us.
Yeah.
Do you
Much better
have
than I was, but
do you have a favorite dinosaur or sea creature?
I mean, Triceratops is the only obvious answer for me. My entire life, I was like, it's my dinosaur. It's got my name right in the middle. So yeah, ever since I learned about dinosaurs when I was, I don't know, 4, who knows, 5. I don't know how old you are when you learn about dinosaurs, but that's been my favorite since then. I was like, it's got my name. So yeah.
Right there with you. Although they don't have my name in their name. Have you ever had a UFO encounter? And I guess in New York, you can't even see this guy, so hard to say.
No, but the one thing I have seen in New York that many people do not believe me that happened, and 100% it happened, was that, I mean, it was a long time ago now. I was like 25, maybe, 25 years ago, maybe. No, 20 years ago, because I was living in this apartment, about 20 years ago. And I was getting up at some, I think I had a flight at maybe 5 a.m. or something. So I was getting up at like, I don't know, 3:30 in the morning or something to get some car service to get to the airport. And I went outside and I was waiting on my block in the dark, like waiting for this car service to come pick me up. And a pack of dogs that were clearly like wild dogs that somehow were lost dogs. I can only imagine they were lost dogs in New York that somehow found each other in a pack, came literally like trotting down the hill that I live on. And it was literally like out of a cartoon. There was like 2 kind of big ones, which I don't know if could have been coyotes or not. I don't know. One sort of fluffy, poodly looking thing, and then 2 little dogs. And it was like 5 of them, like marching like a pack going down the hill. And I just stood there and just like looked at them go down. And then one of them looked at me as I went past and it went on. And I was like, what just happened? And many people did not believe that happened when it happened. And I was like, I was not asleep. I was not dreaming. I was there. It happened. And, there have been like various other urban legend sightings of New York of these pets who get lost and somehow find each other. But that's the closest thing to a UFO that was very surreal when it happened.
Well, there were probably a dozen different cartoon series of stuff like that, right?
Oh,
The cats
100%.
that would gang up, and West Side
100%.
Story and the burrows. Yeah.
100%. It's like a movie from the 80s, like the animals that do a journey and then they now leave New York and end up in California or something, right? Like that's several 80s movies, I feel like, storyline.
Okay. Well, that brings us. That was our last question. Let me do a play on your points here. So, Sarah Louise Lilley, I am elated to inform you that you are our ultimate high scorer of all time, 6,372 points, which entitles you to either an awkward size or a genuine compliment, your choice.
I'm going to go with the compliment.
Okay. Well, I would have had something different for you off of our phone conversation, but I took down a couple of notes here, and I'm going to say after these lightning round questions, I really admire you for being sort of an outside the box thinker. So you don't necessarily the question that I sent you. You're not afraid to morph it, take it outside the box, change it around, and this is my genuine answer. You're kind of a make your own rules, have a little bit of a rebellious spirit, make your own path sort of a lady, and I like that a lot. Too many people are blind followers and not critical thinkers, and so that would be my compliment for you.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Well, Sarah, our kind of first question that we give everybody after lightning round is: would you give us the what is you in the world?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm EFT practitioner, and I help people or help equestrians overcome fears, blocks, and trauma. So EFT, as you said, stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it's really, for those who are not familiar with it, it's a combination of sort of traditional talk therapy or elements of that with the ancient art of acupressure. And it's called tapping because you're using your fingers to tap on these acupressure points on your face and torso as you're focusing on something that's stressful or traumatic. And it lowers your stress hormone, your cortisol. It rewires the brain around what you're tapping on. You're sending this calming signal to the amygdala, to that flight or flight stress center of your brain. And it really allows you to then choose how you want to show up, as opposed to coming from that habitual place, that triggered place. And so I really help equestrians, overcome, various traumas, whether it's a fall, whether it's sometimes, people have been bitten repeatedly, or they've really have troubles with a young horse. Maybe they really struggle with performance anxiety. In the show ring, I work with all types of riders, from ropers to people who have backyard horses, to professional show jumpers, to eventers, to all types of equestrians. And yeah, I just help equestrians kind of show up in their life and in their life and their horse life in a way that feels authentic and free, as opposed to feeling kind of, stuck or trapped, I guess I would say.
Okay, well, very good. So the tapping, I think I had told you in our sort of pre-phone call before this that I have a friend who I know got a great deal of relief through a technique she called temporal tapping. So I take it was kind of just here at the temples or right on the forehead there. And she had, I don't want to talk out of turn and tell too much of her story, but basically her child was murdered in a very brutal way when she was about 8 or 9 years old, I think. And it was obviously a life ruining kind of thing, and caused years and years and years of fun problems. I know when she for that take that was life altering for her in a good way, and gave her some peace. So would you say that what you're doing is related to that? And would you kind of explain the I guess I'm going to say mechanism, but technique is words. So what is the technique or techniques that we're using here?
Yeah, so it's very similar, right? EFT does a lot of work with veterans and PTSD, and the reason PTSD typically can get worse over time, and why a lot of my clients who've had a fall, it happens, and then somehow their reactions, their anxiety about it gets worse over time, is that you have this, your body's being triggered, and every time it's triggered again in the future, those neural pathways are getting stronger and stronger, right? So you're getting more and more activated in your nervous system every time it happens, right? Which is why these reactions get worse over time, typically, and not better. But what we're doing with tapping is we're very gently, it's a very gentle technique, but we're focusing on what happened in the past, right? We're thinking about it, we're feeling sometimes sensations in our bodies, or we're talking about it. Doesn't mean we have to talk about it, but we're focusing on it. And when we're actually tapping, the science shows us we're really sending that calming signal to the amygdala. We can see on functional MRIs that when you tap, those stress centers of your brain deactivate, right? So we are literally rewiring the brain. It's like we're counter conditioning it. We're bringing up this stressful thing, but we're tapping and we're telling the body it's safe, you're okay, right? It's almost like they cancel each other out. And what we're technically doing when we see those MRIs, right? It's like you're literally you're rewiring this past event to say that was over. That's over now. That was scary. That was awful. That was terrifying. But in this moment, you're okay, right? What trauma does, it takes one moment, right? And it makes a sweeping generalization, right? Like you had a fall on the trails, right? Trauma turns that moment into like you will always have falls in the trail, right? And anytime you go on the trail, your body's like sending out that warning signal. When we rewire the brain around that past event, it's like you don't forget about it. You still remember it. It doesn't feel activating. And suddenly you have new possibilities in front of you. There are lots of other possibilities, right? You'll have a boring trail ride. You have an awesome trail ride. Your horse will spook, but you won't fall. Like there's so many other possibilities, as opposed to what typically happens is your body is, again, is a badass at keeping you safe. So it's gonna raise that alarm bell and project what happened in the past into your future. And so what tapping does, again, is rewires the brain around that event. So you correctly, literally like store that brain in long-term storage in your hippocampus, that part of your brain, right? So it says it's in the past, it happened, it sucked, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen again.
So what I was saying is I know that there is a pretty strong correlation between it has to do with time. So it has to be within the first 24 hours, and the shorter the better. But like there are amnesia inducing drugs you can give people so that right after a traumatic event, they don't get to the dream state, which is required to store that event in long-term memory. And it sort of disrupt pathway where don't suffer the trauma and again and again. It basically like gives them amnesia where they don't remember this, they don't store it, and thus their nervous system doesn't respond to it over and over and over again. So would you say what you're doing is sort of related to that, or are you mostly working with people more far removed in time? So maybe they had this event a year ago, more or
Yeah, great
less,
question. Well,
or
so first of all, I got to look into that drug, not because I want to use it, but just interesting. I've never heard about that. So thank you for mentioning it. I will from a nerd perspective, I will look forward to diving into seeing that research. So no, I would say typically, occasionally my clients might find me after something has happened pretty recently, but typically it's something that happened quite some time ago. I would say generally the clients I attract are people who are super successful, really, probably more towards the type A side like me, very resourceful, super intelligent, very successful in like all areas of their life, right? And so when something's happened, like a fall or a series of falls, they're doing all the work, right? They're doing all the mindset work. They're listening, they're reading all the books, they're listening to all the podcasts, and they're really trying to figure it out on their own. And they're being told by, again, well-meaning people, well-meaning trainers, you just got to think positive, just put it behind you, just keep going, right? And they come to me feeling really frustrated because they've been really working on this for a while and nothing's working, right? They're still struggling with anxiety. They're able to push through on some level, but they're either not having fun or they're just feeling so anxious. It's just taking all the fun out of their horse journey. And somehow they'll come across my work and they're like, oh my God, I think you're the missing piece. That's the missing piece, because it's not happening. What's happening to them when they're triggered, it's not happening on a conscious level, right? They're like, I'm put on this horse. I know this horse is not going to do anything. This horse has never taken off from me before. This horse is a schoolmaster. This horse, I could put my 3-year-old on this horse. Like nothing is going to happen. They're very aware nothing's going to happen, but they're riding this horse and they're having some sort of panic, some sort of nervous system reaction, right? Because it's not happening on the conscious level. They're so triggered and they can't figure out what the trigger is. But that's because, again, if the nervous system doesn't feel safe, if it's feeling triggered, just like someone with PTSD, right? I had a client years ago who was like, would drive to work, and every time he would go past, he was a veteran, every time he would go past on this one road, he would have a panic attack when he went past this one store. And he was like, I don't know why it's happening. And it was because like one little glint of light would hit the light at a certain time, and it was triggering this reaction that he had back when he was in combat, right? And so I'm getting excited and I'm talking fast. So I'm going to take a breath. I forgot what the question was. Oh yeah, well, how long are we working on? So that's to say. But what the work I do does is the body, we go through the body. We don't go through the mindset piece. We're going through the body. And so we're following that emotional signature back to what the body is holding on to and what part of the fall, what part of the past the body is holding on to, which sometimes is what the client is very aware of. And sometimes it's something that the client is like, I didn't know that was the thing that was keeping me stuck this whole time. So to your question, yeah, most of the time I would say my clients come to me having struggled with this for a while because they're trying to figure it out on their own, and they're being told, like, to kind of push through and keep going and just keep at it. And oftentimes that doesn't work.
So would you say the mechanism at play here? I have a lot of little questions, and I'm going to keep this organized for you, but is it more because interfering with the amygdala side of things, the fight or flight, high intense emotion, keep you safe? Are we interfering with that more because of the somatic, the touching? Is there a correlation of where you touch to what sort of emotion you're dealing with, or does where you touch not matter? Or is this more of a, because I'm touching you, I'm interrupting this in time, and so you're having this feeling from the past, and I'm distracting you with the present, and that is somehow interrupting this mechanism? How would, and I don't know if I have articulated that well or not, but you seem like you understand what I'm trying to say here. So
yeah, so as we're focusing, if I understood your question correctly, yeah, as we're focusing on this event most of the time in the past, right? And then we're tapping on these acupressure points, which, anywhere you tap on your body might feel good, right? Might feel relaxing, might feel good. But what we're actually tapping on, these main 9 points, are the most highly conductive points on your body. So they're literally the most kind of powerful points, which are sending really technically a tiny electrical signal to that amygdala, right? Which is telling the amygdala, you're calm, you're okay, you're safe, while we're focusing on this scary thing in the past. So that's what's causing the rewiring, right? Your amygdala is like, oh, I guess, you're feeling safe now, you're feeling calm. Oh, I guess this thing is over. I guess it's okay. Does that make sense? And you're rewiring. Did that answer your question?
somewhat,
I'm not sure I got to your question.
Part of it. And then, so you have on your site, which will of course help to, there's a picture where these are, and they're mostly on the face. And so I would have this question as well. When I think of parasympathetic nervous system, which I assume is part of what you're trying to trigger here, maybe incorrectly, but you're nodding in agreement.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're in threat, right? When you're in a state of protection, you're in that place of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? And when we're tapping, we're moving you from that place, right? That sympathetic, that activated, to the parasympathetic, to that rest, digest, you're safe connection. So 100%, we want to shift the body from a state of protection and threat, sympathetic, into that parasympathetic.
Okay. So here would my question, and making some assumptions here, and I'll be frank on human enemy, horse enemy. But points of seeing most up. So let's say top, little and above. And my thought would be, when I think parasympathetic, just think of the vagus nerve runs along your lung and I'll tap on your, and I would, most of the pressure points are vagus nerve related. Is there another cranial nerve that we're targeting here that has more parasympathetic response than what I'm thinking of, or how is that working?
Yeah, so what we're tapping on is like the end of meridian points, right? So in the science of acupressure of Chinese medicine, there are these kind of highways of energies, right? These meridian lines. And so we're tapping on like the end points of those meridians, right? Which kind of come out, most of them kind of your, as you said, like chest and, head and chest, head and torso. What we do know about the vagus nerve, I'll speak to that, is that Peter Stapleton, who's the sort of two really like the leading experts on EFT in terms of doing the clinical trials, doing the studies, getting those articles in, peer-reviewed journals. One of them is Peter Stapleton. She's based out of Australia. And she's done a lot of work with Stephen Porges from the Vagal Institute and polyvagal theory. And what they've shown with EFT is that EFT increases your vagal tone, right? So you can measure your vagal tone, which just means how resilient you are, right? How quickly you can come back to calm after a scare or after being stressed, how resilient your nervous system is. And what we know is that doing EFT increases your vagal tone, right? Allows you to have more resilience in your nervous system. And even using myself as an example, like I feel like I have, since I've been doing this work now, which is, I don't know, six and a bit years, I feel like I have an entirely new nervous system. I mean, you asked me earlier, like, would I ever be an actor again? And the answer is no, but there's a small part of me that thinks, oh, but if I took all the tools I have now, if I took this nervous system back to my acting days, like, oh my goodness, like what a different experience that would be. So I do think, well, I know that EFT does really increase your vagal tone and does make you more resilient in life and give you a better ability to handle stress, right? And if you have good vagal tone, if you're resourced, life is always going to happen. Stress is going to happen. But if you're resourced, you're able to come back to calm after stress more quickly. If you're under-resourced, you slip into fight, flight, freeze more quickly, and you have a much harder time coming back to your center, coming back to a place of alignment if you're not fully resourced. So EFT does really kind of increase your resilience in that way.
This may be an oddball question to you. I haven't studied acupressure, the meridian, that sort of thing. Really, there is a part of this resonates with me. I have studied hypnosis, so if there are different way of hypnotizing people. One of them that's kind of popular through television now. The list thing is a somatic way. So in other words, the most common way I've seen is you'll ask someone, you'll put your hand out like they'll go to shake your hand, and there's an automated response there in your body because you've done that so many times, and then they'll take your hand and do something weird with it, and it rewires you, and boom, you're susceptible, and you're their puppet there all of a sudden. So so for a New Yorker, I would say be careful who you go to shake hands with. But that is a somatic approach to hypnosis, and that may be something. There may be a psychiatrist listening to this that's really shaking their head and having a guttural response to what I just said. I don't know, but I'm curious if there's any correlation there in terms of this sort of, I almost think of it as a distraction. Maybe that's a clumsy word for it, but it's your nervous system has an expectation and anticipation. We're running this highway, and then here's the left-hand turn we weren't anticipating, which
yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that, right? It's if you're talking about EFT just as a, say, regular emotional regulation tool to use in everyday life, which it can also be used for that way too, it is a pattern interrupt, right? So what you're saying in that is like a pattern interrupt. If you're feeling really stressed and you're suddenly then tapping, it's like this great pattern interrupt. You're sending these signals to your nervous system and you're like, you're okay. And then your nervous system's like, oh, I guess I'm okay, right? So it is a somatic approach 100%. And it is that, I wouldn't say it's not a distraction because you're not saying don't feel what you want to feel, right? EFT isn't really about getting rid of bad feelings or getting rid of them. We're actually, when we're tapping, it feels counterintuitive, but what we're actually doing is we're actually letting you feel what you want to feel and let it come up and out, right? Emotions really, the science shows that they really move through your body in 60 to 90 seconds if you don't re-trigger them by thought. So if you can just hold space for the sensation and be with that, that will shift and change if you don't re-trigger it by thought. But most of us get stuck in the thought process, right? Like most of us, like classic example, like, you have a quote, some people have bad rides, right? You have a bad ride and then you're driving home from the barn and you're just feeling disappointed. And then you start making all this meaning out of it. And you're like, oh God, I'm a terrible rider. I'm never going to meet my goals. And I'm letting my horse down and so much better than me. And you just spiral, right? But again, if you can just be with the sensation in your body, get out of your head, into your body. What's my body feeling? It's just feeling a little heavy. You just tap with that, hold space for that. And then it's like, yeah, all that's happening is my body's a little heavy. I'm a little disappointed. I'm okay. I don't have to make stories up about it. I don't have to make meaning out of it. I can just be with that. And the more, again, the paradox of it is that the more you hold space for it, the quieter it gets. And then you're like, oh, I'm just a little disappointed. It's okay. Right? And you can kind of move on as opposed to getting spirally and stuck in these negative emotions. Like before this work, I used to get like, I could get in a funk and be in a funk for days because I could just spiral myself and get stuck in these like whirlwinds of emotion, as opposed to actually giving them permission to be there, not making meaning out of it. And then it actually will kind of, a colleague of mine says something about feeling it to free it, right? It's like you're actually giving yourself permission to feel it, letting it come up for 60 to 90 seconds, and then it will actually kind of move through you.
I want to kind of keep exploring what I'm feeling here is the dichotomy of the word feel. So we have feel in terms of emotions, and then we have feel in terms of physical sensations. And part of what you're doing is somatic. And so, and I don't remember, I know this came up. I don't know if it's off your website or a conversation we had, but like Bessel van der Kolk's book, Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
I have a few questions here, so I'm gonna not throw it all at you, and I'm gonna I'll just throw that at you right now. Just tell us about that book, if it influences how you view that, and then I'll ask
that has to be, I mean, that's a seminal text on trauma and how the body stores trauma. So yeah, if anyone hasn't read that book and is intrigued by this kind of work or how the body stores trauma, it is just an amazing book. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's probably definitely in most people's top 5, if not the text on how the body holds trauma. So it's a fantastic book. And again, it just really talks about how the body stores these emotions, sensations, what happens to you, right? And that we have to address the body piece, not just kind of the mindset piece, right? We are very good. We are not taught as kids. We are not taught to feel our emotions. We are told, don't cry, you're being ridiculous. We're told, don't yell at your brother, he didn't mean it. We're told, go hug the person. I don't want to, I don't care, just hug him anyway. We're told to kind of override. We're told to kind of push down, to ignore, to suppress. And your body stores all that shit, pardon my French. So we have to kind of address that, right? And we just, the body stores it. So we just really want to learn how to, there's such an invitation to, just everyday stress, learn having the tools to really process it out of your body, as opposed to just kind of layering it in and just storing it and just pushing it down, because that is really where I think so much disease comes from. And just really, the effects of stress in the body are well documented, so I don't have to go into that, but that is because we don't have an ability as a culture to feel our feelings and be uncomfortable. We just want to suppress it and put it down and ignore it and just push through
it. So this kind of brings me, I guess, to the crux of my question here with that. Do you find that this has varying levels of effect or different effects on different types of people? So here's part of what I mean by that. I went through a mental health summit for people involved in the horse world here, I guess, about 2 years ago. And one of the things I discovered with that is that I have a different response to a lot of things than normal people do. Like there were things people were talking about that I could not relate to. I don't experience the world in the same way that they experience the world. And so for me, like I have attempted to read The Body Keeps the Score probably a dozen times, and I just can't. I don't experience the world that way. I don't think. I have seen videos of people that will experience, like they'll be in the middle of a chiropractic adjustment or a massage, and all of a sudden their body just fucking goes into convulsions, and like some emotional thing got released. They don't know what it is, but something is like I've never had that sort of a response. One of the things I think that was brought up in the book, The Trend Deal, was people were talking about they would feel, and when I say feel, I'm talking about both. So like if they were happy, they will have a physical sensation in a specific part of their body. If they're sad, they'll have a physical sensation and a tightness in the chest. Like I could say that if I'm sad, if I'm at someone I love's funeral, like my throat will, I will have those sorts of things. But other types of emotions, I do not have a physical. And I try, I have attempted to be aware of this. I think I just don't. experience world. So do comes pick me or maybe a lot or all or my just not point or sensitive to yeah you people a hundred times
I'm missing the last. It's doubling again. The last bit. The first part I heard. The second part, it was gibberish again, because it's echoing.
You come across people have during physical feelings like me. This is down experience the way that most people would, or a not as a event thing. I'm at a stage where I just haven't gotten to where I can feel this yet, or whatever. So when I explain all this to you, what are you hearing? What does that sound like to you from your point of view and experience?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say there's a huge range of what's normal, quote unquote, right? And this vast, such a vast spectrum of what people feel in their nervous system and their bodies, and all of it is normal, right? They've done studies. There's that amazing documentary about that free climber. I can't remember what it's called. It's probably just called Free Climber, or that guy who free climbed El Capitan in California, I think it is, right? And he just literally free climbs this death-defying mountain for like 3 days or something absurd. And they've done studies on his brain, and he has, parts of his brain are larger in his brain than other people's, right? So he has a greater capacity to not go into fight, flight, freeze, right? Or like his brain, just the way his brain is different than a lot of people, which probably it gives him the ability to do what he does, right? So again, everyone's brain is going to be different. Everyone's nervous system is going to be different depending on what you do, in life, right? There's all there's famous studies around, well, not so much anymore because we have less and less cab drivers, but New York City cab drivers, they've done studies on New York City cab drivers, and they have their kind of memory center of their brain is really well formed typically, because over time they've had to, that's what they do. They know all the streets of New York. They know how to get everywhere. And so that part of their brain is really robust, right? So just to say, like, you can grow parts of your brain, you naturally may have parts of your brain that are stronger, weaker, right? All super normal is what I'd say first. And then I think in terms of feeling sensations in their body, again, there's a huge range of normal, right? Some people, some people feel emotions very clearly as sensations in their body, and some people don't. And that all of that is normal, right? I've had clients who, will be tuning them into something, and they'll very clearly feel it in their body as we're talking about something that happened in the past. And other clients who've had, traumatic things happen had a very big response when it happened. But when we talk about it now in this moment, they're not feeling anything in their body, even though when it happened, it was really scary. And we can work on it however it shows up. So I think first thing I would really just highlight is that it's very, there's just a very large range as what's normal, right? And I think it's only, there's no problem unless you're having a problem about how you want to show up in your life, right? Like, there's not a problem if you don't feel a lot of sensation in your body and it's not a problem, then there's probably not a problem, right? In the same way, if some people have a lack of childhood memories because of a trauma response, right? They spend a lot of their childhood in a state of anxiety or a state of threat. And so as a protection mechanism, their brain was not worried about like retaining storage of these memories. It was really focused on just kind of survival. And so they don't remember huge parts of their childhood, or have very little childhood memories. And it's because it's a little bit of a trauma response. And some people don't remember their childhood for reasons that aren't related to trauma, right? So again, it can mean certain things and it doesn't necessarily mean certain things, right? So there's a huge, again, spectrum of what's normal is what I would say. Yeah, I would say that majority of my clients come to me having big nervous system reactions, which are manifesting as physical sensation, right? They're either riding and suddenly feeling like their arms are locking up, or, they're walk trotting and they feel good. And as soon as the trainer's like, okay, great, let's canter, they're suddenly feeling their arms lock up, or they're suddenly feeling their stomach drop, or they're suddenly feeling tension, or they're suddenly feeling panicked. And so they typically, coming to me because they're having a physical sensation, a feeling in their body, which is just they're being triggered, right? The alarms are going off in their amygdala. Part of them is not feeling safe. And that is really taking the fun out of the journey. And they've tried everything else and nothing is working. and they've somehow come across my work, and working on this, bringing in the somatic piece and working on the safety of their body is a game changer, because it's just a brand new approach, because I think there is such a mindset focus in this work. And I love mindset work. I was a mindset coach before this work, so I love that work, but sometimes it's just not enough. And so for a lot of my clients, working with the body for the first time, working on the somatic sensations in their body just changes everything.
I'm going to throw a little bit of a sensitive one at you here. But again, I am analytical, and that's my interest here. I'm not trying to step on anybody's feelings with this, but women and men. So most equestrians are women. Women are also, one of the significant differences between women and men is that women are wired to be much more sensitive to risk than men are. That should really be like a controversial state. That's men die accidents in the test of 40 every year. So I would assume the majority of the clients that you would have would be women, but have you worked very much with men that have had similar issues, and do you see kind of a difference in the way that they handle fear or risk or whatever it is that we're dealing with here?
Yeah, so I agree with you. Most of my clients are women, but I've worked with a lot of men too, and I think I would, a gross generalization, but I would say it's there's even more, I would say even another layer of shame involved, because again, I would say these are guys who are super successful again, and they've never had this problem before, and now something's happened. I would say the guys typically find me faster. I would say I don't know why that is, but now I think about it, the men I've worked with, something's happened and they find me pretty quickly after that. I don't know if that's just luck or if that's how that happened.
That's not
I would
luck.
say,
Yeah, I could tell you.
I would say the women I work with tend to have like really tried to figure this out on their own, and they've, and maybe it's just the luck of the timing. I don't know. But now I'm thinking about the majority of the men I've worked with, something's happened and they found me pretty quickly after it happened. And there's definitely an added layer, I would say, and it happens for everyone, because it's, it's like, it's just hard, right? In industry, and you having these big responses, and some of my clients have, very successful in the horse world, and they've, they're trainers or they're professionals. Now they're having these nervous system reactions, and there's a certain amount of like, this shouldn't be happening to me, or I'm better than this feeling, right? But I would say with the men, there's even an added layer of shame, of feeling embarrassed, of keeping it a secret, of not telling anyone, of really struggling with like a shame piece around it, more so than the women, I would say. And I think so some of the men I've worked with, really working with the body and the emotions is very new work for them, and they're totally into it and ready for it, and they have amazing results. But I would say it feels quite foreign at first. Like they're totally open to it and like diving right in, but it feels very different than what they're used to doing.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, as a man, that the shame and everything they're feeling is why they find you quicker, because they're sure to get this the hell fixed is more intensely felt by them, and so they're going to actively find something to solve this. I would think.
It's funny. I've actually never put that two together. I've never quite realized that, but I think that is there's a couple of exceptions, but really that does feel true, that most of the men that have found me, pretty quickly after an event happened, as opposed to more distant, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I would say too, like I don't know quite how to say this, but with my recognition that I experience the world differently than a lot of people do, a lot of that does have to do with fear too. Like I've been in a lot of wrecks and things like that. I rode bulls for years when I was younger, and I could be in immediately life-threatening peril and completely relaxed 1.5 seconds later. Like the I don't have a long lasting that, drawn out 5 minutes later. I'm still like it's when it's over, and I'm good. And I know most people do not experience stuff that way. Um, so yeah, I
I mean,
don't
it's
know.
so interesting, right? Because I'm sure that your nervous system learned at a young age, like I can be in this life-threatening place, but I'm also right. I'm okay after. Like it maybe it's interesting to ponder because maybe you grew resilience there, right? You were in these life-threatening places, but then it went back to calm pretty quickly. Some people, their experience is like they're threatened like constantly all the time, right? You never get that release and real back to ground zero, back to neutral, back to quote unquote normal, right? Or peace, I would say. So it's interesting if you were in these really heightened states, but then you did get back, you did have a chance to kind of recalibrate, get back to kind of a quiet place. It's interesting. Yeah. I like to scan your brain and really dive deep.
There's probably a triceratops head somewhere in that scan. So think of the amygdala. Now, this is something I have been doing for a long time. I mean, I actually have a folder in my called the amygdala hijack, and
Mm,
it's because I do deal with people problems. Not like something else that I specialize in or whatever. But across that I have always used humor sort of as my to shock them out of it and make the nervous system take that left hand turn. And so I have it's even got degrees of it. So I have things that I can say to shock an 8-year-old or an 80-year-old. And to me, it kind of has to be like a bucket of ice water in the face.
yeah.
You have to shock them enough
Yeah.
to like
I mean,
snap them out
sometimes,
of it.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it is that there's that famous thing of, right, of like you're getting anxious and you're writing and you get your trainer to just like, ask you what you had for breakfast and do you have any siblings and when's your mom's birthday and what do you want for Christmas? And like just get them talking because it gets them out of the head, just kind of talking and more relaxed. So certainly there's a lot of those, as you said, pattern interrupts can be really helpful just from a kind of an emotional perspective for sure.
So I guess this will be my last one on this, but we kind of have the link between this is the somatic thing that we have the emotion and the posture, I would say, that's associated with it. And like we do have some pretty famous studies done, mostly I'm aware of with depression, but like you can take a depressed person, clinically depressed, like diagnosed, not like just bragging about it on social media for virtue, but like you can take that person and make them smile in a mirror for 20 minutes a day. And if they will do that 30 days in a row, it's clinically more
Mm-hmm.
effective than antidepressants are. And so your body will follow the posture that you give it. So do you feel like there's a link there? I know you're not necessarily working with posture, but do you sort of see as the person's tapping, and I guess I need to ask you about that directly too, but are there postural shifts that occur directly that allow you to know like you are here on the map, we have made enough of a shift or not enough of a shift and we have
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
continue?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, 100%, right? Like this, the Amy Cuddy power pose, right? Where she did a whole TED talk and you basically stand like Wonder Woman. And if you stand like that for 5 minutes, your whole nervous system changes. It literally makes you feel more powerful, more confident. So those little somatic shifts are, I think, very real. Um, I would say in terms of when I'm like in a session with someone, um, sometimes they look very different at the end of the session. Like the whole face looks different. There's a more relaxed quality. Maybe their breathing's different. Um, in EFT, just like when you do body work on horses, there can often be a lot of yawning. And certain clients, like I know, will yawn at certain points, or I know when they've really started yawning, okay, good, we're making progress there, things are moving. It's very much, yeah, like watching a horse get magna waved or massaged or something. You're like those big yawns. And clients was like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, let the yawns rip. Perfect. Love it. And they're just yawning in my face, but it's great. So sometimes, yeah, a client yesterday was like, she was saying how she felt like there was kind of a weight on her chest. And by the end of the session, she's like, I almost felt there's a bubble there. It's like this upward, like her whole body just felt more alive and more, just so much lighter. And so I can definitely like notice that and feel that and intuitively sense as clients are shifting. We do a lot of eye movements in EFT, which are also similar to the eye movements in EMDR, where we're using the eye movements to process memories again, in the same way that you do in REM sleep when you use those eye movements in REM sleep. So we're kind of recreating that environment. And so I can often tune in to how many more circles do I want to have them make the move, or how many more eye movements do I want to make them do, based on like my tuning in of like, oh, the yawns are coming, or they're slowing down, or I can just see those shifts in the energy in terms of when I want to kind of stop them or move on to something else. So in terms of tuning in. And then just finally around the posture piece, right? I've had a couple of clients come to me to say, has said things like, my trainer says I'm like really leaning forward and going into the fetal position when I'm riding, and I don't even know I'm doing it, right? And it's because their body is feeling unsafe. And naturally, what do? We do, unfortunately, the worst thing we can do with horses is that we lean forward and we kind of clench over. And then, of course, the horse is like, oh, well, it's like the opposite of what we want to do. And I've worked with several clients who are like, I don't know how to, they've said to me in the first call, I don't know how to fix this because I don't even know when I'm doing it, right? Because again, it's happening on a subconscious level. They're not necessarily having like feelings of panic or they're not even really feeling anxious. They're just, quote, unquote, being told they're, quote, unquote, riding badly, but it's not actually a riding issue. It's really a nervous system problem, right? Because they're feeling unsafe. And so without realizing it, they're going into fetal position. Suddenly their hands are tightening. They've got lead arms, right? And their trainer's yelling at them and they're like, I don't even know I'm doing it. So to your point, I think that's where this work is helpful, because I think a lot of, quote unquote, bad riding is actually like a nervous system problem and not actually bad riding, a lack of safety. And so, yeah, some people are doing these bad habits without even realizing they're doing it.
It is an interesting because what we're doing is inherently dangerous. You are on a 1,200 pound risk
for sure
that you demand is the emotive, and you can get hurt. Like it's definitely gonna.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, and some horses are more sensitive than others, of course, but the fact that they can smell our stress hormones, they can hear our heartbeat, right? Then some horses are like, it's fine, I'm going to carry around whatever's happening up there. You do you, right? And other horses are not, need more regulation or need more leadership there. So yeah, I think it's a vital tool to have in your toolbox.
So thinking about the nervous systems, and I'm gonna assume this may be more than I should say, but we're just talking about parasympathetic and sympathetic here within the autonomic nervous system. There's a lot of talk, especially in the world now, that made it seem as though it's an either or, and we do know that's not actually true. You kind of have both existing simultaneously, and it's maybe more accurately said that you have one dominating the other at the moment, but that can change quarter of a second to quarter of a second.
100%.
So how do you view that or organize that?
So I would say, I agree with you. Again, it's very flexible, right? And again, it depends how much resilience you have in your nervous system, right? If you have a scare or something happens, if you're resourced, then it's like you get back to calm more easily, you get back to your center more easily. If you're under-resourced, right, then you can kind of have something scary happen and you can kind of get stuck there. And I do think typically, whatever state you're in, you're going to be subconsciously looking for evidence to stay there, right? So if you're in a place of safety and connection, you're feeling fully resourced and you feel really good, someone, on the street like yells at you and you're like, oh, whatever, you're having a bad day. Sorry, buddy, I'm good, right? And another day when you're feeling under-resourced and you didn't have a good sleep and you didn't eat breakfast and, you had a fight with someone and then that same person, the exact same thing happens again and you're like, oh my God, right? And so whatever state you're in, you're going to look for evidence to stay there. But we do have tools like EFT to be able to shift you when you get stuck in that sympathetic to move you back into that parasympathetic. And life's going to happen, right? The goal is not to be like, I'm calm and, I mean, unless you're a monk and you want that, but most of us aren't. The goal is not to be like, I'm Zen and I'm, kumbaya or something, right? Life's going to happen. It just means that when you have tools to support yourself, if big things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would equate like that Zen state sort of thing. I would equate that to boring. I don't have any desire for that whatsoever. I want some ups. I married a redhead, right? Like that should tell you all you need to know.
Yeah.
So what does a typical session, let's say that I'm having a trauma response, I don't know what's going on, but my body gets contorted, I go fetal position and all that when I ride, and I find you and I call you. What does that look like then? How does that work?
The first thing we do is we just do a free call where we're just talking about what you're struggling with and what your goals are, right? Because I always want to make sure that I feel if I need to work with you and I feel like I can help, and I want to make sure that we both feel excited about it. So in that call, I'm going to ask you what you're struggling with, what your goals are, when this started, how long it's been going on, just your backstory and what's happening, right? And I always tell people I like to hold a container for sort of 8 sessions minimum, 8 to 12 to start with, because I want to do deep work that creates really long lasting change. And then in that first session, it kind of, there's not really a one size fits all. Typically we're going to go pretty gently at first, right? We're going to kind of ease into this work. This kind of work is new for a lot of people. Oftentimes before we even work on the issue, we might work on the feelings around the issue, right? So if, for example, you've always been a really confident rider, but now you had this one fall or these couple of falls and you're just feeling super frustrated and annoyed at yourself and just like, why is this happening? And right, we might work on that first, right? The feelings you have about the issue first before we even work on the issue, right? Just allowing yourself to kind of, again, it feels counterintuitive, but really feel that frustration, really feel that upset. So again, it can actually get lighter and come up and out. So by actually voicing that frustration, by actually voicing, feeling into where it is in your body, that upset, that frustration, that shame, it actually gets lighter. I mean, that's the such kind of like paradoxical, like doesn't make any sense piece, but we're actually giving your body permission to feel it. It actually becomes lighter and you feel less of it.
Facing your fear, right?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. We feel it to free it, and we really own it, right? You own it, so it doesn't own you, right? And then then it's like it makes sense you feel that way. Of course, it's frustrating. And what that looks like is really literally we're talking maybe for a few minutes of the session, might do a little brief grounding, and then we're really tapping. Like we're literally tapping through these points in this order. We're doing some eye movements, and we're just processing what's coming up. And then, over time, we're again, depending what the client's struggling with, what happened, we're most likely going into past events where this, I don't want to say problem, where this issue kind of originated. And again, we're rewiring the brain around those past events. And sometimes it's really horse related, and sometimes it might not be horse related, or it might be, depending what, like I've worked with a lot of people on boundaries, whether it's boundaries with their horse, right? Of like maybe working with a young horse on the ground, and then maybe they have a pushy horse and they're having a hard time, like creating boundaries with that horse in a compassionate, kind way. Because when we trace it back, their childhood was somewhere where it wasn't safe to put a boundary in place. They learned to be a people pleaser because that was their survival skill, right? They learned to make sure everyone else was okay. And if everyone else was okay, then they're okay. So then with their horse, it becomes really hard to kind of create that boundary because it requires them to say, no, you need to stay out on the circle. You need to stay out in a kind way, right? But you need to really step into my power and be like, you need to stay out. You need to stay out. You can't crowd me like that. And that can be really hard for someone who has never learned that skill because they've learned to kind of, like, are you okay? If you're okay, I'm okay, right? They're not used to stepping into their power, stepping into that. They've never had kind of calm, compassionate leadership model to them. They equate leadership with cruelty or leadership with trauma, right? So it's hard to step into that leadership role. So that piece, we work on things that aren't related to horse stuff at all. It's really childhood stuff that then they can show up so differently in the round pen because they've worked on this other piece in their past, right? I've had other people who come to me with, problems with trainers, right? And they have a hard time kind of just negotiating trainers that may or may not, be the most compassionate, or maybe, just a tough personalities. And again, they have a hard time sticking up for themselves. They finding themselves kind of, their boundaries are really kind of wishy-washy because it wasn't safe to have, they don't have that skill. And right. And so again, we can go back to a lot of times childhood pieces around how to, safely stick up for yourself, right? And so allowing that to be safe, because it wasn't safe for them in their childhood. For them, they learned that if you're in a position of authority or position of power, it's like, it's not safe to, stand up for yourself. It's not safe to speak up for yourself. It's not safe to disagree with someone in a position of power, right? And so now they're in this relationship with this trainer where, and again, I'm not talking about even like really abusive trainers or anything. I'm just talking about someone who's a strong personality, but they feel like they can't show up in an authentic way because they don't even know why, but they just know they can't do it. And it's really frustrating, right? And so when we trace it back, it goes back to stuff that's completely unhorse related, but doing that work allows them to show up from a place of strength, and allows them to show up being like, it's okay if this person is disappointed. It's okay if this person's angry. I'm coming from a place of integrity. I know I am coming from my place of what I value. And it's okay if that person's upset. It's okay if I've disappointed that person. It's okay if they don't like my decision. And for some people, that doesn't feel safe. That was a very long-winded answer to your question.
No, that's fine. I guess part of what I was getting to is like, is this a phone call, a Zoom call? Obviously, you're in an apartment in New York. You're not flying around the country to have face meetings with all these people, or you're a very, very busy person. So how does it not physically, but the what's the mechanism of how you're communicating with these people?
Yeah, so I used to work 1 day a week with people in person, but now I do all Zoom. And so, yeah, I'm tapping on my body as you're tapping on your body. It's really kind of like a Simon Says. So I'm getting information from the client and I'm using the client's words, and the client is repeating back after me, right? So literally as I'm tapping my body, they're following along, they're repeating my words out loud. Yeah, and I'm tapping my body, they're tapping their body. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah, somewhat. And so they're not mounted necessarily. This isn't like a lesson and the horse is right there and they're just talking and kind of relaying. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And so is it the kind of thing where you're giving them the tools next time you are riding in this situation and you start feeling you're going into the fetal position, sit up straight, take 3 breaths, tap your eye for 4 times on the left, 3 times on the right,
great
and circle
question.
8 times. And
Yeah. So typically, like in session, we're doing the deep work on past events, right? And that's something you do want to do. I tap on myself about stuff all the time, and you absolutely now have a tool for life. My clients will have this tool for life. But I do think for anyone, myself included, if you want to do kind of really deep work on stuff that's happened in the past that feels, a lot like that, you want to do that with the practitioner, because it just brings more co-regulation. Mirror neurons are activated, the safety and a certain amount of surrender that happens like when you're working one-on-one with someone and by yourself, right? So when I do the deep work with clients, what happens is that, like, use a perfect example, the client I worked with this morning, we've only had 1 session, and she said, oh my God, I went to the mounting block after our session and I felt super calm. I wasn't even going to ride, but I just literally was like, I've never gotten the mountain block, feeling just like, yeah, I'm just standing here looking, right? And so what you notice, again, as we rewire the brain, as we kind of change your body's relationship to the past, you're able just to almost like, it feels kind of disconcerting at first. It feels kind of magical. You're like, I don't know, I felt so different. I felt like in the past, it might've been like 1,000 out of 10. And now I felt like just a 1 of anxiety. It just felt so different, right? So it allows you to show up. I swear sometimes it still feels like magic, completely differently in your present, but then you do have a tool, right? And so you learn to build capacity. One of the questions I talk about a lot is, what happens if you can't tap, right? Maybe you're in a lesson, you're at a show, you literally hands are on the reins, right? Like you can't tap, right? You physically cannot tap. But what you learn through EFT is the skill, again, to move toward the emotion and not away from it. right? It's like you're at the in gate and it's like you're feeling a little bit of anxiety, right? And it's manageable. And instead of being like, oh God, no, oh no, I'm going to feel anxious. This is bad. I can't feel this. Oh no, what's going to happen? I'm going to forget my course. I'm going to forget the pattern. oh no, right? It's like, oh yeah, look at that. I got some sensation. You learn to kind of get out of your head into your body and just like, oh, there's some sensation in my stomach. You learn to kind of focus on it. What does that feel like? How big is it? Instead of tapping, you're just going to breathe into it. You're just going to hold space for it. You're going to do the opposite of what you did in the past, which is to allow it to be there, allow yourself to breathe into it, just really like breathe and allow, and you grow the capacity to be uncomfortable through this work. So instead of before, you're like, oh my God, I'm feeling anxious. This is bad. I can't do this. This is terrible. You're like, oh, look at that. I'm a little anxious. That's okay. Wow, I'm at a show. Of course I'm a little anxious. No big deal. You build through this work, you build capacity to be uncomfortable. You build capacity to be with those emotions and also still show up with presence, right? To show up with all parts of you, to show up in alignment, even if a part of you is feeling anxious, even if you have a little bit of a racing heart, even if you have a little bit of a nauseousness in your stomach, you're like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm more than this feeling. I can hold space for that. It's not a big deal. I can just be with it. And the irony, of course, is the more you're with that sensation, the quieter it gets. But that you can really, through this work, you learn resilience. You learn how to hold space for discomfort, how to hold space for emotions so that they no longer knock you off your path.
Okay, so I have a few things that I wrote down, kind of clean up notes here that I wanted to revisit. So from a horse trainer's perspective or someone who's giving lessons, I'm going to just challenge you, poke you a little bit on a couple of things that you said, but I have the feeling you're going to be emotionally resilient enough. You're going to handle this very well. So let's take the classic example of your horse just balked or something. You fell off. You're a little shaken up, but you're not hurt. Get back on. You need to go. I could see an argument for that. And basically the argument would be stops you from overthinking. We're going to get you kind of back to moving and back in this little so that you can over where if I left you alone in this little quivering ball of jelly, you may be more likely to put that emotion in the washing machine and just wallow around in it and wear it a long time. And I'd rather like get you past that. Let's get you back on and see your, now that could be done skillfully or that could be done poorly. And I'm not going to say it's always the right thing to do. I'm also not going to say it's always the wrong thing to do. So what would be, I know you were saying it depends and that's probably always the right answer, but so your thoughts, like what would that always be the wrong thing to do? Or
I mean, I think one is, as you said correctly, like every case by case basis, right? Do you know the kid? Like, what is your relationship with the kid? Like, is it someone you know, right? You're going to tweak this to suit the kid. The first thing is just leading with compassion. It's so obvious, but I think important to underline because we can forget that, right? It's like just really coming with compassion. Are you okay? How are you feeling? Right? The first thought that came up to me is I used the analogy earlier of the mouse, right? Of being like chased by the cat and then it gets in its hole and it's okay. And then it just shakes it off. Like what came up for me immediately was like, how great would it be if you could just be like, okay, let's just shake that off. Whoa, that was scary. Literally shake your body, right? Like encourage them to shake their body because that's going to do the work for you without you talking about it. Like, are you okay? What's going on? Right? Just get into the body. Just let's just shake it off for a second and literally like have the kid like shake it off or say something like, great, let's shake that off. Let's take a walk around right now. Let's just lead the horse. Let's just give ourselves, shake that off. Let's take a walk and just walk around the kid, right? Around the arena with the horse. And most of the time, if they're okay, that is going to do the work for you without even needing to talk about it. Then it's like you walk around the arena once and you're like, okay, how do you feel? Are you ready to get back on? And it's okay, saying it's okay if you don't want to. And most of the time, I bet they would say, yeah, I'm good. Because you've given them a moment to process that out of their body. Their nervous system is probably feeling better. And they're probably like, yeah, I want to do it. So that's what comes up for me of just really giving them the time. So they don't feel the pressure, right? So you're not like, okay, you've got it, right? It's like just giving them the time, creating the time for them. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say you you kind of brought this up earlier, and I don't remember now your wording, and I did not write it down, but basically it was about like, here's the person on the horse and they're not feeling good about it, but the professional is there telling them, no, the horse is going to be fine, you're okay. And so again, I'm going to challenge you a little bit on this, because I view an awful lot of what I do as pushing people outside of their comfort zone. That's where
Yeah.
the growth takes place, right? Now, again, I would certainly allow that could be done well or that could be done poorly, right? And if I were to push someone out of their comfort zone and then the horrible wreck happens, obviously that will destroy lots of trust, and that's kind of worst case scenario sort of thing. So taking the side of it that and then viewing it from the professional's side, how do we walk that line of being able to push someone outside of their comfort zone but not traumatize them at the
Totally.
same?
Yeah. So I want to clarify something first. So I think the clients of mine that have said things like, I knew something was a little off, but I didn't want to say anything or be difficult or just like make a fuss, or I didn't want to be seen as overreacting. Typically, those are either professionals who are riding horses for owners, right? Or juniors maybe who felt like something was off, but they felt like the trainer knew better. And it was typically something like that they thought was maybe off with the horse slightly, but they were capitulating to either someone who they felt like knew more than them, or kind of an owner. They didn't want to disappoint the owner. They didn't want to pull out of the competition because the owner would, the owner's got a lot of money on it, or whatever the thing is, right? So those examples were less about feeling a lack of safety in the nervous system, or there was a lack of safety in the nervous system, but it's more about there's something off with the horse. Even though you're telling me he looks fine, I feel like something's different. Do you know what I mean? So that was the distinction I want to make there. And that was more about trusting their own body and their instincts over someone who potentially has more information than them, or is more knowledgeable than them, or in a kind of owner situation, like prioritizing their needs first and their instincts first over, potentially upsetting an owner, right? And then in terms of the discomfort piece, like I agree, right? Like growth happens in the discomfort. Like I agree with that. But I think there's a difference between someone having a very big out of control nervous system reaction and someone being a little uncomfortable, right? I think you want to create a come from a place of safety, and then you want to have that like 10%. Like you don't want to be pushing yourself more than like 10% growth, right? If you've jumped a certain height, it's like you want to go up a level, great. Just do that a little bit, that increase, and that's great. And that is to be expected. That's going to make you a little uncomfortable, right? The nervous system wants status quo. It wants to stay the same. So know that any change, your nervous system is going to be like, whoa, this is different. This is new, right? But it's the ability to hold space for that. Let's just use that example, like going up a level and jumping a home or something, right? Like it's the ability to hold space for like, oh, of course this is making me a bit nervous. That's okay. It's just new. It doesn't mean I'm incapable. It just means this is new and I haven't done this before. And I can be with that. I don't have to make meaning out of it. I can trust my training. I can trust my trainer who I trust, and she thinks I'm ready. I trust my horse. There's no reason to think he can't do this, right? And it becomes that phrase of like, yeah, even though there's a part of me that's nervous, I choose to trust I've got this, right? Even though there's a part of me that thinks that jump's a little bit big, I choose to trust my trainer. I choose to trust my training. I choose to trust my horse. And to me, that's just the ability to be with a little discomfort, trusting that it doesn't mean you're incapable. It just means that it's new, right? And any new thing is going to activate your nervous system a little bit. So I think, to your point, we just want to practice being uncomfortable, and you just want to edge into that discomfort by kind of no more than like 10%. Does that make sense? As you said, if you're overfaced by a horse and it's big in that 10%, it's not a safe environment. You're going to get too triggered. It's not too much, but there's skillful ways, which I'm sure you're skillful at, of just supportively pushing people into their discomfort, but finding that, going in a way that feels supportive, which is generally, I would say, in that 10% kind of rule.
Mhm. So you just it was a bit of a relationship for me, and I would say I have conscious done with this which is a long time, and I kind of realized that with people too, but it wasn't really conscious, but it is that, like, if you think of desensitizing or something with a horse, or sensitizing, even when we're pushing them, there is a push and we get outside the comfort zone, but there's very much a cycle to it. It's a push, we get out of the comfort zone, and then we return to safety, and then we push again, and then we
Yeah.
return to safety. So it's never a push, 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 and we stay out of our comfort zone for 45 minutes
Yeah.
straight. It's always a push and a return, a push and a return. And gradually what is their comfort zone grows. And so the point of
100%.
safety 2 weeks from now is way out here beyond what we could have
Yeah.
comprehended 2 weeks ago, right? But so that's where the comfort zone grows. And I don't
100%.
think
I
I
love that.
realized I did that consciously, or I wasn't consciously doing that with people, but I will definitely view it more that way now. So thank you for that.
And I
One of
think
the
it's
other
important,
things,
right? If someone does say, if a student does say, I'm nervous, not saying don't be nervous. You can be like, yeah, it's okay to be nervous. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense you're a bit nervous. We're jumping all higher than you jumped before. It's okay. Yeah, just breathe into that. Yeah, you've got this, and you've got this. Right? I think the problem becomes when, again, well-meaning trainers say, oh, don't be nervous, because now you feel nervous, and now you feel shame and embarrassed that you shouldn't feel nervous, and maybe no one else is feeling nervous. Now you feel stupid, you feel nervous, and you're the only one that said anything. So now you've got like shame on top of nerves, and that's when you get tension, right? So it's like, yeah, it's okay. You can be, yeah, absolutely. It's normal to be nervous. Absolutely. Right. And just kind of acknowledging that like it's not a big deal. Then they're not stuck in it. Then they're just like, oh, okay, okay, good. Yeah, I still got this.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay and normal to be
Yeah.
nervous. If you're not
Yeah.
ever nervous, then
Yes. And
there
that
was,
means you're growing, right? That is true. Like if you were just staying the same, there would be no nervous because you would just be doing the status quo, everything the same in every single lesson. So nervous means you're growing. So yeah. The other
but
thing I'll say just around trainers is my trainer was out of town, and so I had a lesson with the trainer I'd never met before. And she called me to send to the ring. I said, let's just chat for a moment. I said, sure. And she asked me a few things. And one of the things she asked me was, have you ever had any really scary fall or trauma around horses? And I've never been asked that question. And I was like, yes, thank you so much. I mean, not for me personally, but just as to make us more trauma informed as a community. I just said to her, I was like, I love that you asked me that question. I said, I've never been asked that question before. And what a great way to create a place of safety to be like, yeah, I'm there. It's okay. We're normalizing that. If I had something, I could have brought it up and been open about it. That talking about anxiety or being anxious about certain things is absolutely, of course, fine. And I thought that was so good. I've never been asked that before. And I just thought that was such a great way to create an environment of safety with someone who I'd never met before.
well, I'm gonna pat myself on the back a little bit. I asked that too, and
Ah,
I'll even add one to it. So now in this day and age, I also ask people, have we had like a knee replacement or a hip replacement, or do we have some kind of a physical limitation here where I know you're having trouble with the right lead, but it's because you have a titanium hip there or something, and you can't move that way anymore or whatever. So I really feel like I'm gonna totally jump on board with you here. I think in order to effectively help someone in a lesson, you have to have a pretty good set of skills at building rapport with that person so that they trust you. And I am just, all is not the right word. I'm in shock at some of these people that I see that are just assholes and trying to teach people. And I'm like, there's no way that you can be effective like that. Like you're, all of the time and money that person put into this, they could have just set on fire, and there's no way they can hear you. They can't respond. They're not going to remember it. Like, this is just nothing good is ever going to come. You can't that I have a scenario that happens almost a clinic. I will be active asking some step out of the zone. And now here I'll grab. Do you want you, are you okay with that? And every regular lessons, they look at me and say yes, and I will say, you're lying to me. Everything about your body right now tells me that you are not okay with that. This is too much, and it's okay. That was not actually a yes. That was a no. So we're gonna cut that in half. We're gonna take a smaller bite. Like, it's fine if that was too much. I'm trying to push you here, but there's a line of what you can handle, and we don't need to step beyond that, because again, nothing good is going to come from that moment. So
Yeah. Well, I
no
love that
has
you
to
can
be
honor
okay.
that. Yeah, I love that you can honor that because again, some clients or some of these people you're talking to may be aware it's too much for them and it's kind of trying to push through, right? And trying to do a good job and trying to, be the right good student. And some people may actually not be aware that it's too much for their nervous system. Just like my clients are told by their trainers, like, you're in the fetal position, what happened? And they're like, oh, I didn't even know I was doing that. I was grabbing with my arms. I hadn't even realized, right? So I love that you can notice that and you can really support them in that way because they may or may not have that awareness. And I think just to underline your earlier point, creating that space of safety is so important. Just as a baseline, I mean, I've worked with so many clients where we work on other things first, and then it'll come up in session just that they'll make an offhand comment where they'll say something like, it's just so funny because I suddenly feel like, I get yelled at and I feel like I'm 12 years old again. And it's like, let's work on that. We're joking about it, and we've all had that experience of like, oh, I went to the party and I felt like I was, 16 again, and no one was talking to me or whatever, right? But it's like, let's work on that because if there's a part of you that's scared and feeling like you're in trouble and you're 12 years old again, like that's going to show up. Your horse is going to feel that. That's going to show up in your journey. That's not helpful, right? And again, I'm not even talking about trainers who are sort of abusive or really out of line. It's just maybe just they're yellers, right? And suddenly they feel like they're in trouble, or maybe they had someone in their family of origin that yelled at them a lot, or they had a bad experience in school with teachers yelling at them, right? And they're in a lesson and they're grown adults and they're just feeling like they're, suddenly 12 years old again, being yelled at and they're in trouble. And you can't ride well from that place, like 100%. So I've worked a lot with that kind of stuff. And, I think, yeah, so some of that's our work to be done, right? Because it's not, but I think there's a lot of trainers who could do a much better job of creating safety for sure.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn it to you now a little bit, and we'll dig into your background and your qualifications, how you got started with this, and what drew you to this in the first place. So, indelicately, I'm going to just throw this at you. Have you had a traumatic event in the past that made you seek this out? Like what
Yeah,
was the
so
nexus?
yeah, so my backstory for me, and my husband's okay with me talking about this. I've been very open about it, and he has too. So I mean, it's like he's okay, but it's like out of a bad movie. If you saw this in a movie, you'd be like, that timing is ridiculous, so over the top. But it was it'll be 7 years, and it was Christmas morning. My then 8-year-old son is like opening presents, Christmas morning, 6 a.m. And my husband had a massive stroke in front of us. And he was rushed to the hospital, and we were 3 weeks in the ICU, and our whole world was turned upside down. He came home and could barely speak, and obviously it was very traumatic. And our whole world was like upside down. And that first year was just obviously a massive pivot. My husband came home not being able to be left alone at first. Really like huge amounts of therapy and just a really, yeah, obviously like very traumatic time. And like a year into that sort of post-traumatic of that event, like my nervous system was just a wreck. Like I just was like, it was just a wreck. And, I'd pivoted work because I was trying to figure out like, how can I, now, if our income was 50-50, now my husband can't work and I've got to do 100%. And I was an actor, which is not very stable. I did pretty well as an actor, but not, not a big stable, like guaranteed income or, so I was trying to pivot work and I was working crazy hours doing a job that wasn't my calling. I just was overworked and very stressed. And one of the things I thought I was looking to figure out how can I get this stress out of my body, and I came across tapping. Actually, let me rewind. So one of the things, a year into that, it was, as you can imagine, one of those like life is not guaranteed moments. I hadn't been horse riding. I'd been riding like on vacation, like a couple of times a year, but not regularly as an adult. And after a year after my husband's stroke, I was feeling all this stress. And I thought, I have to ride regularly. This is the thing I love to do the most. I did as a kid. I'm not doing it as an adult. Like life is short. I have to prioritize this, right? And so I started writing again. And it was like such an amazing, like my one thing in my life that was like this just gift. It was like this stressful, it was just amazing. So good to write again. And I just started weekly lessons again. And then pretty early on, I broke my finger while I was writing. Didn't even hurt, not a big deal. They ended up finding like a tumor in my finger. So it wasn't even, I did anything really wrong while I was writing. The surgeon was like, oh, you could have like lifted a coffee cup and broken your finger. Like wasn't even really writing related. And it wasn't a big deal. Like it really wasn't. And then I came back to writing and I was super anxious. Like I could not figure it out. And I was just really anxious. Like I couldn't get over it. And I was trying mindset tools, didn't work. And I was like, what is happening? It was super confusing. The anxiety was really taking the fun out of my horse journey, which is what clients now tell me all the time. Like this thing I love to do was just being ruined by this like low level anxiety that like I couldn't get rid of. And I work with an EFT practitioner on tracing that anxiety while I was writing back. And it was life-changing. And I traced it. My body went to something completely unhorse related. My body had connected. Like you could be riding along and just one day just break your finger to, you could just be opening presents Christmas morning. Your husband could have a stroke. Like it had connected that kind of like out of nowhere feeling into my writing. And once I had made that connection and worked on that, it was like instantly I was different in my writing. Like I just night and day, like suddenly the anxiety just wasn't there. It was just like a 0.001 maybe lingering for a couple of weeks and then it was just gone. And it was just such a huge shift. It was suddenly that I was then back in the saddle doing something I love that I really needed in that time. And suddenly I was like, I need to bring this to the horse world. Like, this is huge. Like, I didn't have, like, how is this not talked about? There was all this mindset work, sports psychology, but there wasn't this trauma-informed piece. And I just thought, I'm going to pivot. Like, I'm just going to bring this to the horse world. And I had kind of started to pivot there. But when I first started my business, I worked specifically with fears, blocks, and phobias. So I had a couple of equestrians, but after my own experience with it, I just was like, oh my God, I want to pivot to working with equestrians because I just deeply know like the joy of being an equestrian and what it feels like when it feels like something's in the way of that and you're struggling, you can't figure it out. And to give people the gift of like getting back to doing something they love is just so deeply rewarding and joyous because I've been there and I know what that feels like. So that's what I'm passionate about doing. I'm certified through EFT Universe, which is one of the world's largest kind of certification programs at EFT. It's run by Dawson Church, who's a seminal kind of him and as Peter Stapleton, who I mentioned earlier. They're the two lead researchers on EFT. And EFT, I think the biggest misconception about EFT is it's this woo-woo thing. But Dawson especially is really leading the charge to get all the clinical trials, to get all the articles in peer-reviewed journals, to get all the studies so we can really prove the efficacy of it through kind of the science lens and not just kind of anecdotal evidence. So that's what I'm certified through. And I actually mentor up-and-coming practitioners now through there too. So practitioners who go through the training process. I give them feedback on their session notes and kind of mentor them to the next generation.
So is there a next step for you in this, or are you still evolving in this, or you're at a place now where you're pretty happy and comfortable and content, or what?
Yeah. So, I mean, I love working with people one-on-one because I feel like in our sport, it's very segmented, right? There can be so many different English and Western, and even within the different communities and roping and trails and all the different things, and there can be quite a lot of kind of separation and judgment there. And I just work with equestrians of like all walks of life, all ages. I think my youngest client, 8, I had like an 83-year-old woman I work with. So it's like a huge range of age, all different disciplines, different countries. So I love kind of the inclusivity of what I do. And it all goes back to the same thing, right? It's all the clients I attract are people who are horse first and just want to get back to the love of it, right? The joy of it, whether they're professional show jumpers or they have, backyard besties. So it's so satisfying. I think I don't know. I'll toy in the future of putting some sort of maybe group program course, but I don't think that doesn't really feel, I don't really feel called to do that quite yet, but we'll see. I mean, I think one of the questions I get a lot recently is, do you tap on horses? Like that's come up a lot recently, to the point where I'm like, oh, I could dive into that. But that just feels like a lot, like there's so much I don't know about horse anatomy. And I'd have to really educate myself to talk about that in a way that would be useful. But that has been coming up like a lot recently. So I'm intrigued by that, but that would require me to kind of really, to get a lot more, have a lot more knowledge than I currently do.
Mm-hmm. I would say that there's a lot I do with this that would involve the pattern interruption stuff and all that. But certainly not. I'm not tapping on specific spots or anything. It's pretty thought provoking, really, on how all of this works and the different modalities that seem to have similar effects and what the real pattern of that is and everything. It's a pretty and I'm
also,
kind of
I mean, even when you think about when you get stressed, like what do we do just intuitively? We're like, oh God, oh my God, what am I going to do? Right? Like, oh God, right? Like we naturally do that. Like we naturally kind of know to kind of touch these acupressure points, right? And so EFT kind of systematizes what we kind of like naturally know to do. And certainly like some practitioners are deep dive really into like the Chinese medicine side of that. Like I that's not one of my areas of focus, but certain practitioners really deep dive into like, this point is related to the stomach meridian. This point releases toxins in this part of the body, but that's not really my area of focus. But there's lots of different kind of approaches you can take.
So is there a difference? So like you're working with not interception, so self-tapping, and obviously self-tapping with a horse wouldn't be possible, or that would be very, very tricky. So is there a difference in you touch your face or I touch your face?
So there are practitioners that if you work with someone in person, the practitioner would touch their face, right? Because what you're doing, it's like you're just giving them this technique, this cue to their body. So I could tap on you, but the reason I don't do that is I want to give you a tool. I want to empower you, right? I want to teach you this tool so you can do this work in between sessions, that you won't need me forever, that you have this tool that you can now do on your own. But yeah, if you want to dive deep into something comes up in life and you want support, you can come back and work with me on it. But that you have this tool now you can do on your own, that you don't need me. Right. So I don't ever want to tap on people because I want to empower you to do the work yourself. In terms of horses, obviously you're not going to have the psychological piece with horses, right? You would just use the technical issue of tapping on them. And there are a few practitioners that do meridian tracing. And obviously anyone who does acupuncture on horses, right? You're literally putting needles into acupressure points, right? So it's kind of the same meridian system. There's a couple of practitioners in England that I really like that do a lot of meridian tracing on horses. And they're literally just using like gentle touch along the meridian lines. And I've done a lot with my horse for that, and she loves it. And some of like I tap on the pole, which is like the equivalent of our top of head point. I tap under her eye a little bit, which we have that point. You can kind of transpose some of the human points onto a horse, and those same meridian lines are the same. And my horse does really like it when I do that. I'd have to really kind of want to, this huge missing pieces in my, horse anatomy and basic pieces around that to be able to kind of speak to that effectively.
It sounds a little like the craniosacral work.
Yeah,
I don't know much about that at all, but and what I was going to say a moment ago is that like I wouldn't put what you're doing in the woo-woo camp at all.
Excellent.
I might have 5 years ago, but I wouldn't at this point. I mean, to me, there's enough evidential basis to it that and any time I could watch somebody like work a horse, for instance, and the horse tells me what they're doing is having an effect, then I've got some evidence for it.
Yeah,
If if what you're doing, you have to convince me that you're having an effect. Well, that's a little different. But if your subject convinces me, then that's evidential enough for me.
Yeah.
So
And I think to your point, even 5 years ago, you made the joke about 5 years ago, I might have thought, when I came into this, that was what, six and a bit years ago. It was just, lesser known. I think in the last 5+ years, it has really grown in popularity and kind of more in the vernacular. I did a talk at Equine Fair, was that 2 weekends ago? And, in a room of several hundred people, at the beginning of the talk, I just said, raise your hand if you're familiar with EFT. And I was amazed by how many people raised their hand. It was like a sea of people raising their hands, which I know would not be the case 5 years ago. So I was really excited by that because it just, it's like it is getting out there, and the somatic piece, the body-based piece, again, mindset work is great, but sometimes you need the body piece, you need the somatic piece. So I was so excited and inspired by just seeing how many people are aware of this work now.
No, and we need the people to have the tools. Like, even, I mean, in my work with bits, most of the time it's not the bit, it's the rider. And an awful lot of what the rider is experiencing is just like it's the fetal position thing they're not aware of. It's like, hey, you just got really heavy with those reins. Are you aware of that? And no, I wasn't, and so it's kind of the mechanical tool at play here isn't what just changed this vision. It's what's in the meats you're wearing that did. One kind of talking about the emotions that got me a feel. I saw this interview with a basketball player, and I keep bringing it up, but to me it was a pretty cool moment. There was a reporter and a basketball player who bowed or had played in the finals, the pinnacle of what they do. And the reporter just I've been all this and basically said, so if I was in your shoes, I would be really anxious right now. And the basketball player was like, I don't feel anxious, I feel excited. And I thought, wow, that's what a change. These two people would be in the same situation, and this person's response to it is totally different than the other person, which is probably exactly why they can go into that situation and perform rather than shrink. So would you say that this is kind of like that? Like, we're taking this response that you have to this trauma or this fear or whatever, and we are maybe morphing it into something else? The reason I bring this up, I think this was a Jordan Peterson thing. I really like listening to his podcasts and stuff. And this was, again, a revolutionary, a life-changing sort of scenario for me. He was talking about people that are agoraphobic. So they're afraid of everything. These are like the shut-ins, the Howard Hughes that get stuck in the hotel and all they just start working on phobes with them. It isn't that they get less scared, it's that they get more brave. And that's really, like, as we're working with a colt or a problem horse, and we're doing what we would call the desensitizing stuff. That was revolutionary concept to me. It was the lesser of the bag that they braveness. Let's looking at it that way.
The audio is going. Sorry, the audio is repeating again. It's so hard to hear, and then I can't.
That was real revolutionary shift in point of view for me when I started looking at it. Like, it's not that this colt or this problem horse is getting less scared of the flag, it's that they're getting braver. And then that perspective gave answers to other things that you would experience later. Like, for instance, one of the things Jordan Peterson says is that when you do clinical work with some of these people that have real phobias, it's not at all unusual that they will have a breakthrough on the phobia and then go home and have a fight with their spouse. And it's because now they kind of healed, they felt better, they were more confident. And so this thing they kept letting go, they now wouldn't let go. They felt brave enough or empowered enough that now I'm going to bring this up and we're going to have the fight that I haven't had with you for 20 years or whatever. And so I actually see that a lot in horses. Sometimes as that horse gets more and more confident, they will fight you more. The no's become more common. It's for a different reason now. It's not because I'm fearful. It's because now I have an opinion and I'm starting to stretch my wings and sort of Some of them get really lazy, like that horse that was high nervous system energy, and you get them to calm down, and all of a sudden, like now you're having to pedal them for a horse that you couldn't have imagined having to use more leg on a month ago. So
Yeah. I mean, oh my goodness, there's like 20 things I want to say. I will probably lose most of them, but I mean, physiologically, nerves and excitement are basically the same sensation, right? Physiologically in the body, they basically feel the same. One of them we're just labeling as quote unquote bad, and one we're labeling as good, right? Nerves and excitement feel very much the same. And one is just like, oh, it's exciting. I'm excited, right? Now the other one is like, oh God, this is bad. I can't, this is going to mess me up. This is going to stop me. I'm going to forget my course. I'm going to forget my pattern. I'm going to forget what is happening, right? And I think, again, I'm repeating myself, but this work builds capacity to be with sensation, right? Now, a basketball player who's done it, of course, a million times and a million things, he's built resiliency because he's learned, like, I'm okay. I've done a basketball game 100 times. I'm safe. I'm okay. So he has that advantage. But, you're building capacity to be with the sensations in your body and be like, yeah, I'm feeling some sensation. And I'm okay. I can still show up 100% present, even though there's some sensation, there's some anxiety, there's some sensation in my body. I'm still showing up from a place of like presence and kind of oneness. Right. And I think this work is 100%, just like you said, with horses and people, right? It's like, I did a groundwork clinic recently, and my horse had never gone over like a big blue tarp on the ground before. Right. And it was like, I could so clearly see that when she the first time she stepped on it, she did like a flying leap and did like a 20-foot jump in the air, right? Because she wasn't expecting it. And we came back the second time, and understandably, she was like, oh, what's happening? And we just like gently just let her kind of sniff it for a second, right? And gave her the time, not a lot of time, like maybe not even, I don't know, maybe 45 seconds. And I just nudged her slightly, and she was like, okay, I'll try it. And she walked over it the second time. I couldn't believe how easy it was the second time. But someone who'd come behind her and be like, get over that thing, and kind of pushed her through that would have totally messed her up, right? She was given space to like basically make the choice and to be curious and kind of assess and then realize it was actually okay. And I could totally have seen how someone else could have tried to push her through that moment and it would have completely backfired, right? So it's in that same way with humans, how we just kind of want to kind of gently hold space for these things. They come through and then we can kind of take action, as opposed to being, I've lost my metaphor, but kind of just push through that fear. We just kind of want to hold space for it. In the same way I was like, yeah, it's okay. Just check it out. You're okay. Just check it out. Great. Now you can step through it, as opposed to like, no, ignore the fear, go through it anyway. Ignore the instincts, ignore the self-preservation, just push through, right? That's when the body's like, absolutely not. Now I'm going to have panic attacks. Now I'm going to rebel, right?
So that reminds me of my thoughts versus feelings question. So like there are different methodologies of meaning a horse. But I'm kind of coming to here as classical versus operant conditioning. I don't know if you're with that stuff, but like operant conditioning involves conscious choice. And so with your work, it doesn't sound like conscious choice is really a part of it. So I'm gonna boldly just ask you this: do you think, or do you feel like you can do a cerebral override of the amygdala? Can you think your way, consciously choose out of these situations?
So I think if there's a low enough activation, right? When there's when you're in a starting from a place of safety, like we talked about, you can say, right, even though part of me is nervous, I choose, right, consciously choose, cognitive therapy, I choose to trust I've got this. Even though I can feel my heart racing right now, I choose to trust I'm going to be okay, right? So you can kind of cognitively make a choice. And that just means you're not denying that you're nervous. You're not denying the sensation. You're holding space for that. It's like parts work, right? IFS work. A part of me is nervous, but another part of me knows I've got this, right? I'm choosing to trust that part. Even though a part of me is feeling a little bit anxious, right? I choose to trust I'm more than this feeling. I choose to trust I'm going to be okay. So then you can kind of cognitively make a choice while also choosing to have compassion, choosing to be with that other part of you too, knowing you're more than just that part, right? But if you're having a big nervous system reaction, if you haven't rewired the brain, if you haven't done that work, majority of the time, just like a PTSD response in a veteran, just like, it's like no amount of cognitive work, in my experience of a lot of my clients, is going to help. You might get incremental change, and you might get change over, 2 years, and eventually get better. But if you want to create like fast acting change, long lasting change with much more ease, a tool like EFT is going to support you. Clients will say all the time, or even back when I was working with non-equestrians, right? I worked with this guy who was incredibly successful CEO, and he had this unrelated event, traumatic event happening in his life. And suddenly it manifested in not being able to get on a plane anymore, out of nowhere. Unrelated big trauma in his life. Suddenly now could not get on a plane. Incredibly smart guy, incredibly like successful guy. And he was like, I don't understand, right? Like, I am so aware that that getting on this plane is safer than driving to the airport. Like, I'm so aware that nothing is going to happen. But he literally would get on the plane, have a panic attack, and would have to ask to get off the plane. And it's like no amount of thinking would happen because his brain, his body had made a connection, and it felt he didn't have the tools, I should say. He did not have the tools to handle that body. Now, if you have the tools, I can give you tools right now and say, this is what you do if you have a panic attack, and it will help. And you will be able to de-escalate that panic attack, so you will no longer be having a panic attack. But if you don't have the tools, no amount of thinking is going to override that. Most people need tools. Does that make sense? I'm like yelling at you. I'm like so into this conversation.
Oh, you're passionate. That's fine. So just a couple of more points here, and I'll let you go. I want to be respectful of your time. I keep coming back in my mind to the hypnosis thing. And so I want to talk about that just a little bit, and maybe that has no play here, but like we've already used the word trigger, and I think we're using it in the right way. Kind of the societal way drives me nuts right now. So many triggers thrown out there, but triggers to me, I'm gonna clumsily say they're almost like waypoints in your brain, and when you hit one of those triggers, like it like going through a portal, it brings you right back to here, to this
100%.
emotion, to
It's
this
like,
fear
yeah.
center or whatever. But they can work the other way as well. So that would be like the hypnosis route. Like I could give myself a trigger word that will calm me before I walk out on stage or whatever. So would you say that there's kind of that mechanism going with this, so that person going into the show ring now can think of, they just close their eyes for a minute, take 3 deep breaths, so they think of their touch space, but now they're going through this mechanism that relaxes them and it brings them their calm, and now they can open their eyes and walk through the gate and boom. Is that fair to say?
No, I think it's absolutely fair to say. One of the techniques I do, which overlaps with EMDR, is bilateral tapping, which is just kind of a way to create like safety in your body. And you're kind of using kind of an imaginative place or ride, and you're just tuning into that with all your senses, right? The imagination doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. If you're really using your senses and activating all your senses, what you're imagining smelling and touching and, feeling in your body, right? And you can use bilateral tapping to kind of activate that sensation. Bilateral tapping, we know, activates both your right and left hemispheres of your brain. It kind of amplifies feel-good feelings. It amplifies feelings of safety and calm, right? So clients will do that. But it gets to the point where at first maybe they do it for 10 minutes and they feel really relaxed. But then they start, like, it's like they can barely just put their hand over their chest and their bodies are like, okay, whew, there we go. Right? Because their body has learned that like over time, the more they do it, they're like, okay, this means I'm safe. This is a reminder. I'm okay. I can let this go. So absolutely, again, your body kind of learns that habit or learns these cues of like, learns its resiliency of like, if I do this, I'm okay. Right? Clients will tell me like, I was at the show ring and I just, for a second, I heard your voice say this. And I thought, okay, I'm okay. So it's not hypnosis, but your body learns cues of safety, right? In the same way, there's lots of other nervous system cues, right? I tell people who work on the computers all day, right? Make sure you're looking out to the horizon multiple times a day. Because if you're just staring at the screen all day, you're teaching your nervous system, like the tiger's coming to get me, like I'm under threat. I got to like focus right here. Because like that's where you look, right? That's you. If your eyes are really focused, the tiger's coming. That's why you can't relax, right? And so just the simple thing of like looking out to the distance and looking out over the horizon and just kind of scanning your space slowly kind of cues your nervous system to say, okay, there's no tiger coming to get me. Whew, I'm okay, right? Even the simple thing of like looking for glimmers, right? Glimmer is just the opposite of a trigger. Glimmer is something that cues you to safety and connection, right? And can you, again, this idea of we're either in protection and threat or we're in safety and connection, and we want to keep cueing our nervous system to safety and connection. And the negative bias is really real. There's so many studies on this, right? 10 things happen. 9 of them are amazing. One of them is like, not great. We focus on the negative thing, right? Because it's much more useful for our ancestors to remember where the tiger attacked us than where the delicious blueberries were, right? So that is in our DNA. That is like part of who we are. That's what our nervous system is going to do. But can we, when we find that glimmer, whether it's something like the other day that there's these beautiful like red leaves trees like at my barn, and these beautiful red leaves against this perfect blue sky. And it was, I don't even know why it brought me so much joy, but it was just so beautiful. It was like, can I just stay there and just like feel it in my body just for like 20 seconds? It doesn't have to be minutes or 5 minutes or 20 minutes, just a few seconds. Can I just be with that and be like, oh, that feels so good. I just love that. I just love those colors. Right? Or can I like snuggle my cat and just be like, resource myself there, right? So we do have ways to not hypnotize ourselves, but learn cues of safety. And the more we do it, just like anything, we can work out our nervous system, just like we work out our cardiovascular system, just like we work out our muscular system, right? So the more we do it, the more we work out our nervous system, the more we find safety, the easier it is to find it and the quicker you get back. So I always encourage clients, like in between sessions, like look for glimmers, cue the nervous system to safety, like work out your nervous system in that way. So I think to your point, the more you do it, the more your nervous system keeps looking for safety, and the easier it is to find it if you get knocked off track. And again, life's going to knock you off track. That's going to happen. So, but the easier it is to get back if you have kind of practiced this work. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Well-worn path. Yes, ma'am. So my final question, this I should have brought up earlier, and I wrote it down and I skipped over it, but I thought it was important enough that I would bring this up. So proprioception in terms of clients. So you would work with athletes who have a very good mind-body connection, and then probably, at least within my practice, most of my clientele are not real they maybe aren't very coordinated and limited in their mind-body connection. So because this involves the process of touch and awareness and such, do you see any difference there? Are less physical people more limited in not really?
Okay. Not really. I mean, I would argue that all riders are athletes, right? Because you're using your body, whatever level of rider you are. I have some clients who, are professional show jumpers, and I have some clients who, have backyard horses and choose not to ride the horses, or they have young horses and they're just doing groundwork with their horses, or people who are coming back to riding in their 60s or 70s and, would not consider themselves athletes really at all, but find, huge value in this work. And again, I think, whatever kind of, I use the word rider, but you don't even have to ride. I have several clients who don't ride the horses for various reasons, whether they have young horses or they're choosing to do groundwork, or I have a client who just is choosing not to ride her horses because she's not sure that their horses want to be ridden right now. And so she's not, they're not lame or anything. She doesn't feel ethically like that. Her signal for a message from them is they don't want to be ridden. So has a different relationship with them. So I think whatever your relationship is to identifying as an athlete or not, this work is super helpful. And I think, I just think it's helpful. It's helpful, whatever your relationship to that is. And I think especially actually, if you, I would say it's even more helpful if you have less of a connection to your body, or I think it's, you start to feel, you develop a greater awareness for your body. Like a client of mine who I've been working with for a while around something specific, and then she kind of left, and now we're just working on a more kind of regular basis, just kind of because, she's getting value out of the work. And she was like, through our work, I'm realizing like I have more awareness of my body and my body. And when she's working with her horse on the ground, she was like, I realized working with him, there's like a little bit of a dead zone on my left side. And it's because the work we're doing, I'm noticing this kind of a dead zone. And that's why it's so hard. Like, that's why he's coming in on this side. And she's developed more body awareness and more consciousness of things she was unconscious about before through the work. So I think that's also super valuable. It kind of brings to light things that may be happening on the subconscious level, just brings them kind of to the forefront and brings them actually up so you can actually work with them.
Yes, ma'am. That way I'm tempted to get into that with you about what consciousness is and sort of that separation between conscious and subconscious. I find that really fascinating. I fear would be our conversation. I want to be respectful of time, everything. So it really has been a interesting conversation. I in this and it's a lot of different. I took ton of here. I really wasn't sure how that part would go. What would have a lot of stimulating thought, and it was a very stimulating conversation. So thank you for having me and for time. I will have to your side and everything, but like to everybody how they in touch you if they're looking.
Yeah, well, I'm very easy to find. My website is emotionalfreedomwithsarah.com. I'm on Instagram. That's the only kind of social media channel I sort of loosely dabble with, which is just at Sarah Louise Lilley. And yeah, it's been such a great conversation. I feel like you had you always have such great questions, and I could keep talking to you for hours. I feel like there's so many things to dive deep on. So I appreciate your insight and your thoughtfulness. And I've loved having this conversation. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 somewhere down the road or something.
I would love
like
that. Let's the subconscious, conscious. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, just real quick before I wrap up, is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to get into, a softball question or something like that? We can go back in or something.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I think.
Damn. I didn't do the sponsor.
What didn't you do?
The sponsor. I always forget about the sponsor. I need to do an alarm or something. So I'm going to do that and it back later. But still, same question. I'm sorry. Was there anything else you'd like to get into that I haven't asked?
No, I think the only thing I would say was a lot of my clients come to me feeling, as I mentioned, kind of frustrated, but also feeling quite isolated and alone in what they're struggling with because nothing seems to be working, and they're getting all these advice from really well-meaning people and skilled people, and nothing's helping. And if this is something that resonates or you're curious about, I just invite you to reach out, because I think you don't have to go this alone. And just so many of my clients will say things like, oh, I wish I'd found you so much, found you sooner. And so I just invite people just to, reach out if they feel like something resonates, because struggling with this frustration alone just feels really isolating and rough. And I know what that feels like because I've been there. So I just would encourage people to reach out if what we talked about resonates.
Absolutely. Struggle or frustration are definitely, that means you're on the path that you have diverted from it. Those are definitely normal parts of this. Let me take just a moment to pay the bills here and bring up our sponsor for this episode. And that's one just coincidentally reached out to me, Sarah. No idea why, just out of the ether as things happen. So our sponsor for this episode is Bendy's Binding and Bending Gadgetry. Do you have horses like gadgetry and need to move something in your horse to make life better? Bendy's Binding and Bending Gadgetry is here for you. We hear things all the time now about a horse having one leg shorter than the other three. Their skull falling problem about paragraph horses, those who downhill. We're help. At Bendy's Binding and Bending Gadgetry, we pull from centuries of the ancient Chinese art of foot binding and several years of growing square watermelons and molds. Our apparatus can give you the prettiest headed horse herd, stretch that's though heel to even bring those with up and much more. That's right. I can turn grade or clubbed horses look like they be dancing at the club. Go Shoshi, your birthday. With the recent proof in blue technologies, you'd be surprised we can stick to it on the days. Do you have a horse that's 14 wanted things more six and handed? We can bone fill in and soft tissue will list. There's need of a horse that could be all that you want structurally, but isn't. Binding is a whole other deal. Would you like to ride a horse with perfectly square hooves? We can do it. Is their rib cage too wide and uncomfortable to ride? We can bring it in, no problems. Are you having troubles finding bits that are wide enough? A few months of jaw binding and we'll fit his jaw to the bits you already have. What about that horse that's somewhat stiff to the left? Place him in a left bending jig at night for a few months and they'll go left like a dream. Need more collection? Don't feel like the angles of that hind end are fixed. They're more of a suggestion. Bendy's Binding and Bending Gadgetry. We're to help your horse fit like a glove. Binding and bending are not just for bondage anymore. Okay. So, no idea why that one popped up. That's where we're so.
Love it. It was that sound. The audio was a bit funky again, so I heard like half of it. But yeah, anyway, intriguing.
Yep. Well, does chords separate channel? So yeah. Hopefully, Cap on my will be with it. But I understand how it can be the conversation when not right. So anyway. What I appreciate your time today, and it has been stimulating getting conversation, and I hope people reach out and maybe help the need or find new solutions that have been before. There's definitely people there that have some issues, some trauma, some problems to work through. If you are one of those people, you're not alone. It definitely, I think all of us at some, if you're in the horse business for very long, something like that's going to come along and eat at you. So get the help that you need. And Sarah and EFT may well be exactly what that is. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It was a really great conversation.
We'll see you next week for another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I've been your host, Daniel Dolphin.